Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Groyper Report. Tonight, we have some groundbreaking news to share with you.
Welcome to the Groyper Report. Introducing the most racist men alive. They are shutting it down as we speak. Welcome to the Groyper Report. Sexist. Racist. Phobic this, phobic that. Terrorizing women across the country. Telling them to wear clothes. Saying all women are mid. Minorities fear them. The president has them on speed dial.
Guess what? Your body, my choice.
Brought to you by Frog Aura Maxing. Brought to you by Frog. GigaChat Central. Yes, thank you for asking. They all must go. Welcome to the one and only. Defending the last white men Earth. AtlasThugged Van der Nord. This is the Groyper Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Groyper Report, another Saturday edition. Good to be back. We're not a weekly anymore, we're monthly with Josh's schedule. Good to be back in here in studio. I am your host, AtlasThugged, aka White Boy Deep Voice, aka another racially ambiguous Groyper, and I'm joined by my co-host. Oh my goodness, oh no. You're muted. I have you muted for some reason. Let me fix you. I'll fix you real quick. All right, redo.
It's Joshua Van der Nord.
So it's echoing really bad on my end. Apologize, but
yeah, I heard it.
Crazy technical issues going on literally just before we had the show go live. Apologies. This is a Zeb Boykin moment, isn't it? Crazy Zeb Boykin moment.
I was joking about that with Atlas before we started. We started at 8:01, and I was like, "Yo, we on Zeb time? What's going on here, man?"
We are.
Nah, but I am happy to be. Was I not here last week? That's right. I wasn't, which sucks because last week was a good week of Nick content, and I missed out on it.
It was. We missed it. We're back. We're good though. We're good now. Sorry, I had some old settings in place. I should have checked better. But yeah, no, we missed a good week of a lot of good Nick Fuentes content last week. Unfortunately, couldn't find anybody to do the stream with, and I figured I kind of covered it decently enough throughout the week anyways. I didn't want to double up and cover it again. And then we have this week where we only had 2 days of America First, which was pretty unfortunate because I was expecting we were going to get the show last night. I was kind of a little disappointed that we did not. So I'm curious if he'll cover or address it further than what he's been tweeting about on Monday. I'm sure he will make mention of it, but I don't know if it's going to be a featured story or anything.
I was very disappointed because I thought we were going to get the Candace Owens, Andrew Wilson sort of Nick Fuentes recap, as well as get him his response to Ben Shapiro sort of, giving him that like, oh, well, he's just a comedian. What did he had a word for it or a phrase for it where it's like, they kind of belittle you. Yeah, it's like when they say, oh, these disaffected young men. It's this like there's something wrong with them.
Yeah, they're pathologizing.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit of Candace Owens there. We'll kind of guess and poke and jive at whatever words we might or should be using, and expect the audience will go ahead and get it. I mean, I feel like no point even really starting with the first couple of days of the week. We should probably address the main issue, which is obviously the debate. And I really did want to kind of hear what a lot of Josh's thoughts and opinions were about the debate. I think you ended up watching the replay. Many of you, there's probably a few of you here that actually watched it with me the morning of. We covered it. We were there about an hour early and watched through the entirety of it, only to find the reaction to be even worse than the debate. I don't know what's worse, actually, at this point. I don't know if the debate itself was worse or the reaction and the psychosis of the masses afterwards. But Josh, your thoughts?
Yeah, so first off, before I share my thoughts, I don't know, do we want to just go kind of right into the debate, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I do have a quick question because I saw like I didn't see the full thing, but was Alex Jones coming out in defense of Candace Owens or was he being sarcastic?
He did twice now. So he recorded like an 8 minute, it was like an 8 minute video, which I have the first one here. I don't think I have the second one in the outline, but it was the first one. And he recorded about a 7 to 8 minute long video, just basically saying that he does believe that Candace won, but that Candace won like decisively. So not only does he say that he thinks she won, but he does a little dance on it too. And the clip that he cites as like the kill shot, the snipe shot, is the one that has since gone viral. I think that's probably the most shared clip of this. And that did happen, I believe, towards the ending arguments in the closing, which was about the 7 charges. And I'm sure you've probably seen that clip too. But it's the one where Andrew Wilson says, "Can you name the 7?" And she names the 7. And I think before then, she's like, "Can you even name 1?" And he's like, "Well, he's being charged for murder." And she's like, "No, haha, it's aggravated murder." And that's totally something different. And that's the one that's being shared. And that's the one that Alex Jones shared and said that Candace won decisively. And then he doubled up on it, I believe this morning, recorded another 8 minute video in his car and doubling down on the majority of what he said in that first video.
Damn, that's disappointing. I saw a very short clip of Alex coming out and saying Candace Owens had a decisive victory, and I thought I was like waiting for the punchline, but I would, brain rot. I was on TikTok or something, and I just skipped it. Come on, man, what are you doing?
Yeah,
I can't help but wonder, because clearly, like Tucker and Candace have a connection, and Alex is big into Tucker and Vance, so can't help but wonder if there's a little bit of that at play going on.
Yeah, well, I guess the way that I see it, I think there's like a lot of like you could probably break this down, like the debate and everything, into a few different categories. Like I think even in the debate in of itself, you have the content of what's being talked about. But I would say even furthermore than that, I think when you zoom out from the debate, you realize like not much of like Candace Owens' positive evidence was talked about, which I think is a huge problem. And one of the first things I guess I wanted to say to that is, we'll play the clips, but the clip that went viral, the one that is like the naming of the 7 charges, I mean, like that's what they're beating their chest on. It's this clip of the 7 charges. And when you think about it and you zoom out, you're like, so you're telling me like the winning clip here that many people are citing is like the moment she won the debate is them beating their chest about the fact that she, who has covered the debate for 11 months since the moment the shot was fired, is able to tell you the charges being levied against the person she's fighting for the innocence of. It's like, I think that should actually be expected, not beating our chest about it. And then in addition to that, the other on the other side of it, what it's being, I guess, compared and contrasted to is the fact that Andrew Wilson didn't say aggravated murder versus murder, as if that is like a notable difference. And I understand they're different, but the only difference being is like one makes it eligible for the death sentence versus the other doesn't. And it's like, so what's different beyond there? It's like there's nothing. And so I guess when I zoom out from that, you look at it, you're like, wait a minute, they're not even debating like if Israel killed Charlie Kirk. They're debating like, does Andrew care about the case enough that he can recite the 7 charges? And I think that in of itself kind of shows you what this has become. And I think Alex Jones, as much as we kind of just criticize him here, he did say it best, which is that this is becoming a black hole. This debate is becoming a black hole where nothing is really even being substantive or positive about it. Everything's being sucked into it and nothing comes back out. And really, I kind of like that. Really, I think is a great kind of way to, give an analogy to what I think is going on in the entirety of it.
Well, first things first, before I respond, I see Smelly Balls is in chat. Smelly Balls, I love you. But so basically, funny enough, the main things I remember from this debate were all the ads, dude. I said this to you over text, and I want to reiterate this to the audience real quick. I've never been more grateful for Nick Fuentes because I tried watching it on Candace's channel and I switched over to PBD. And I came on here ready to bash Candace for having so many ads. PBD was just as bad.
Right.
And so like, thank God for Nick Fuentes not having ads. The super chats are honestly funny. It's never made me more grateful for that, having their own ads and YouTube ads on top of it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think that's another a section of it that I think deserves some like paying attention to, or at least criticism of, from my angle, which is that you do have maybe less so Wilson, right? But maybe more so Candace and definitely PBD, but PBD probably wanted his too. And when you're looking at it, you're like, so all this money that got raised, got crowdfunded for like Wilson going to Candace Owens. And then Candace Owens is not only making money off of the sponsorship and ad reads, but as we're hearing, and I think many people are reacting to, it's like now the AdSense on the replay afterwards, in addition to the ad breaks that are already in there, it's like, I think Alex Stein will probably speak to a lot of people with that clip. I don't know if many of you had seen it, but there's a clip of Alex Stein who says the real loser in all of this is, is Charlie Kirk. And, which I agree with. Maybe I wouldn't be so emotional about it, but I mean, I do agree. You look at that and you go, yeah, the end result of the debate is that nothing substantial happened, and three people who are already well off were made even more well off. And maybe inside there, maybe less so Wilson, who had to go, use a gift send go to fund the rest of it. But the point being is, I think that does deserve criticism. And I think it does point to, even if you didn't want to pick a winner, if you're just disgusted by the overall like entity of what is going on, I think most people may get that feeling, which is like, this is just becoming gross now. It's like there's a debate blood sport battleground now with like money and cash cows all vying to, get their best argument out about this. And I don't think anybody's opinion really got changed ultimately.
Well, and yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of the big issue for me with this is all of the nitty gritty stuff that we were all hoping they would get into got totally brushed aside. And by Candace Owens, you would think she would be the one. I mean, one of the parts that stuck out to me that I remember was he was asking her, like, what is your positive claim that Israel did it or something like that? Like, share with us your best deductive reasoning based on what you know, and whatever that is, say it.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, I don't have to.
Yeah.
And he goes, you don't think people are interested in that? And she was like, no, that's the part that stuck out to me.
So, exactly. Well, just to interject here, that's why I think I was going to frame this. One thing I want to do first is probably give our opinions like maybe a bit more, I guess maybe more like scoreboard style. You're totally fine.
Into the debate.
No, you're totally fine, because the way I framed it in the outline that I put today was like the clip that went viral versus the one that I think should have went viral. And so that's the way I kind of wanted to look at these. And but I guess maybe to give a scoreboard for people who maybe give an overview of our thoughts and opinions here. For me, it is, I do think when the dust settles, I think I guess maybe I'll speak from my opinion is that I don't think anybody won, but I don't think that's a satisfactory answer. So I think if we're looking at how the mainstream and the masses are looking at it, I think to the majority of them, the scoreboard says Candace. I think the majority of the reactions to people of this, they think that Candace Owens won the debate. I do not think that anybody won. I think that Candace Owens, I think she lost the debate, but I think Andrew Wilson also failed to capitalize in any kind of meaningful way. Hence, like, why I even titled this whole thing, like, everybody loses. Like, we all lost. People lost out on money. And the way that the super chats were flying on Candace's channel, like, before it was even live, like, we're in the pre-show when it's like, says, 3 minutes until live. And you're watching super chats, $5, $10, $20, $100 super chats flying through. So I think, in my opinion, I think Andrew did not do, maybe it was the worst performance I've ever seen from Andrew Wilson in my entire life. I will actually say that. I think that I would go so far as to say that. And I think part of that is because I do think he underestimated Candace Owens' like willingness to like double down on some of the things that the average person might think is kind of insane. He didn't get that kind of reaction or catching herself in oh, wait a minute. Because I think for one, she's that insane, and two, she's kind of dumb. So like those things together, her also being a woman, he should have known better than anybody that he was debating a woman. Like, we're not debating Jay Dyer. We're not debating Steven Crowder. We're not debating. So all these kind of like, those little kind of like tidbits he's trying to do with like positive evidence and substantiating your claims. That sounds great to the average guy who listens to debates, but for everybody else, it sounds like he's trying to like use tactics that aren't really going anywhere, which I think overall to the average retarded person, that makes Candace look better. So to me, I think that they all lost, but I think that most people would view that Candace is the winner. And I think that Candace lost and Andrew Wilson failed. And I think they got that from White Reek, and he said it best. But what was your overview of the scoreboard?
Yeah, my overview was basically identical. The people that won was PBD and Candace Owens because they got to cash in from this. We all lost. Nothing substantive was derived from this. This was all a bunch of garbage and poor performance. I mean, like, funny enough, I think Candace Owens did rather well, all things considered, as in she was able to successfully weasel her way out of any prodding, which Andrew Wilson is good at. And I don't think she meant to do. I don't think this was intentional at all, but she was almost able to do that because she was just able to like flood, like whenever he would ask a direct question, she would flood just the stream with words. Right. And it would so happen that she would accidentally or intentionally string together words that would catch Andrew's attention and almost force him to follow that train of thought. You know what I mean? So it would kind of knock Andrew off course. And my problem with Andrew in this debate is he's been doing this for a long time. We've seen him on the Whatever podcast dunking on the whores. And it's like, dude, you don't need to explain the definition of evidence and inductive reasoning and you don't need to like get the person you're debating to like feed the definition back to you to make sure they understand it. Just win the debate, dude. You know what I mean? If they can't answer your questions, just say, okay, so you can't answer my question because you don't know what it is. Don't try and like force feed them the answers you want them to feed back to you. This isn't some OnlyFans whore. Yeah. I mean, it is, but of a higher caliber.
Yeah, in effect. Yeah, tripping over himself with like the, trying to, I guess, maybe divvy things out the same way that he's been used to. But he missed like easy ones, right? When zero mentions of Egyptian planes. And there was like 3 opportunities for him to really pull that one out too, because I think there's like 3 different opportunities. One specifically, she's like, and if I'm ever, she says something to the effect of, and if I'm ever wrong, she's like, and then I own it on my show. And it's like, that's not what you do with the Egyptian planes. And actually, you like push that out there as like this another leading thing that you're overwhelmingly positive, that this is going to go somewhere. And it's like never brought up. It's like never mentioned. Mm-hmm. And, it was disappointing, I think, just in more ways than one, obviously the performances, but also like the lack of what they're talking about. And, Nick said it best too. And I even made note of this. We were on the stream. Like they debated like, what is intuition and inference?
Right.
Like in the first, for the first 2 ad breaks, they like spent, all that time fighting over like semantic definitions. So I thought that was a big joke. But I guess I did want to keep the framing here. So I guess we'll start with the clip that went viral, the one that we've already kind of pointed to. And then we'll compare that one to the one that I thought should have gone viral. And I guess maybe we'll explain the reasons why. So I'll go ahead and click on this clip and pull it up for you guys. But here it is.
The question, you're just not following it enough?
It seems pretty...
The question, you're just not following it enough?
It seems pretty, like, if you're going to engage and you're going to say the evidence is overwhelming that Tyler Robinson is guilty, I just think that you should, like, can you tell me one
Then let's do the
charge
counter. You can really, hang on, this is a great gotcha.
No, you just got to ask me, play clips out of context, put me in the hot seat, so please just answer the question.
This is fair. Name all 7 since you've been following the case.
Okay, sure. You name one.
Yeah, you named all 7.
I'm happy to do that, but can you name one?
I think he's been charged with murder.
That's actually incorrect.
Okay, great. Now name all 7.
He doesn't even. This is like
name all 7.
And I
can you name all 7?
I can.
Then do it.
Sure, you don't have to
do it. No, do it. I'll count them. Go ahead.
You don't have to put your fingers up.
Okay, I'll name them.
Yeah, sure.
Name them.
The first charge is aggravated murder because that's what carries a death sentence in the state of Utah. No,
Next.
that's not. That is literally not murder.
Okay.
And so just for people, I don't have to do it in a time limit. There's nothing going on. And just to explain to people the difference of why that really matters and shows that he doesn't actually care about this at all is because aggravated murder, it's narrowly defined, and because it carries a death sentence. I'm going to answer the question.
Okay,
You're just going to recognize that your strategy of thinking that people are intimidated when you try to put a time constraint doesn't work, and you'll be better the next time you debate someone.
I got it. Give me the other ones.
The more you cut me off, the longer I'll take. Do you want to just wait for me to finish of why that's a big difference so that people don't walk away?
No, I just want you to list the charges.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. You just don't get to pretend that there's a time constraint for me to do that.
Well, how long does it take you to list 7 charges?
Because I'm speaking. You just got to.
It sounds like you're just delaying it because you don't know them.
I know all 7 of them,
Then
and I'm going to say
them
again, because you're going to get embarrassed. You don't have to rush this. I'm also showing an example of a very flawed debate strategy. I actually am under no time constraint.
I got one.
Great. The second charge is the felony discharge of a weapon. The next 2 charges are for obstruction of justice.
Okay.
The next 2 charges are for witness tampering. And
what's the specific charges, though?
That is them. Obstruction of justice, obstruction of justice, witness tampering.
Okay, and there's no other specifics to them.
Well, I can tell you why he's being charged.
No, just the charges and then 7?
Yeah, see, the bad thing is when you try to be an a-hole and it doesn't work.
What's the 7th?
The last charge is violence in front of a minor.
Okay, got it. So then he's being charged with murder. You just say aggravated murder. That's the distinction. You just want to.
It's a massive. It's like you cannot say murder versus aggravated murder.
Distinction.
This gets to the entire crux of why him being up for the death sentence. And I actually find the defense's filing about why this is not aggravated to be very compelling of why it's not aggravated murder. I actually think that if the state was going to even try to pull this off, they should have charged him with just murder. And then I do also, again, want to stress to audiences that debate strategy gets some sport. I think he thinks it's a blood sport. It's not. It's about being right and being principled when you're engaging. And you can make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, but at least be genuine in pretending that you care about this case enough to know one of the 7 charges that are up against Tyler Robinson when you say the evidence is overwhelming that he's guilty.
Well, I think that kind of is the gist of that clip. This is the one that's been going viral. There's been different forms of it, different formats of it. Yeah, but it's been that one largely. Some variation of it. Some have been like 5 minutes. Some have been just a 3-minute version. And just inside of there, you go like, it's just insane, you know. Especially like the whole thing of like the murder charge being like of an entirely different world than like the aggravated murder charge, when really the main differential there is like, will he get the death sentence or not? Which obviously I think, you know, it is a, you know, to that individual, I think to the family, that's a major difference, right? If you're like your son's going up for trial, the death sentence, or being able to talk to him in prison, I think, you know, for different people and different reasons, that's a big difference. But in terms of identifying it as a charge, I mean, like that is like, I mean, that's kind of like what we went after, like, you know, Snopes for, with the way they would like fact check back in like the 2020 era, where it'd be like, you know, did Donald Trump actually say this? They're like, no. Well, he did say this. He didn't say it on Sunday. Like how it was like, it's like, dude, you're trying to find these very marginal and like tiny things to like take wins on, but it doesn't actually talk. Like Wilson was like 95% right when he said that he's being charged with murder. Most people would go, oh yeah, aggravated murder. Yeah, that's like murder. But she tries to drop a win on that, and then she brings up the 7 charges. And that is what's going viral from the debate.
Well, and so this is, again, this is my take, but I'm going to say this, I think if you're looking at this as objectively as possible, this should have been the takeaway from this clip, which is Andrew does have certain debate tactics, and he rides a fine line, and he runs the risk of flubbing something and making himself look stupid.
Yeah.
Now, 9 times out of 10, it works out in his favor because he's debating complete idiots. Occasionally, you get like that one girl who kind of like, you know, brought up his wife and kids and he got flustered.
Yeah.
You know, and in this case, he was trying to make Candace look stupid. He did a Hail Mary and he said, name the charges. And she kind of stumbled through it.
Right.
But again, I think that was my main issue with Candace, is she just would draw every little thing out as much as possible. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I think what the average person's takeaway should have been of that clip was Andrew made a calculated play and it kind of backfired.
Right.
He's not wrong and she wasn't wrong. It was a stalemate at best. But of course, there's the pro Andrew people that are basically, oh, it's not a big deal, and the Candace people that are saying, see, he tried it, it didn't work, and he got the charges wrong himself. They're like overplaying the little bits and pieces on both sides. You know what I mean? When in reality, like nothing happened. At the what did we get from that?
Right.
The definition of what kind of murder. And first off, what he's being charged with, who cares? Like we're here to discuss whether or not it's reasonable to assume that he did it. I can look up right now what he was charged with. It doesn't matter.
Right.
I want to know what the evidence is. Now, obviously, they did get into that, and this is a clip. But that's what I'm saying is, it's like, how long was that clip? Like, it's a 4-hour debate. That's several minutes, and it's just like stuff anyone could know. Anyone could find out.
Well, what's wild about it is, like, I don't think it's in that clip, but like a little bit before then, because I've been watching clips like all day today. Just obviously paying attention to the news generally. And he does say, like, there's so he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, yeah, do you want to pull those up? Like, we'll like list them here. There's like already admission that like he doesn't know what they are. Like he couldn't name the 7 charges specifically for what they are. And I will say what's made worse is after he miscalculates on the play there, afterwards what he ends up doing is he's like, oh, did they text you that question? And then it's made worse when there's no messages found on the phone. So it's like it was like a double whammy of like a really bad calculated kind of play there. And, to think that that's what's going viral is super unfortunate because of all the things that you had just said too. Like it doesn't actually get to the substance of what people wanted to hear. What people wanted to hear was, which I think is the clip that should have gone viral, is what is her evidence? Like when she says that she's positive that, the French Legion is involved and that Israel's involved, he goes, so why do you think that? And it devolved into, well, you don't get to tell me what to think. What, am I not allowed to think anymore? And it's like, holy fuck, how is people not seeing this? Like, to me, that was like maybe the most like grating part of the entire thing was, I think anybody who's been in an argument with a ex-girlfriend, or maybe your current wife and things have gotten better, but you don't want to admit to, don't out yourself now. I know what it's like, brother. But you've been in a bad or heated argument with a woman. I mean, these are the things that she does. And throughout the entire debate as well, like I can't make a mention of this, but just how incessantly incisive, mind you, of anytime that Andrew Wilson may have interrupted, she's like, she's like getting like super offended. And then while Andrew Wilson's talking, she's like, oh yeah, I'm sure. Oh, okay. Wow. It's like all those interjections. So she's not trying to interrupt, but she is obviously clearly like levying like all of her like bitter, like this resentment towards Wilson. And maybe it's towards everybody at large in that camp, but it's very visible. And I guess the point I would make in that is that as much as it's visible for me and you, as we're listening to a woman say this and you go like, bro, this is like unbearable. Like, I can't stand that she's doing this. Like, if she's being such a bitch right now, I do think on the other side, when women listen to this, they are blind to that. And what they do hear, though, is the way that Wilson comes across with like his ego and like this kind of trying to, what they view as like being petty, the same way we view Candace Owens being petty. And so I think you have both of those going on. And I do think there is a male versus female component added to this that's not being talked about, which is you basically do have the boss girl of boss girls going up against the lead debater out of the manosphere, if you will, or scene coming out of like the red pill, if you want to. And I think there's like maybe a lower level of that maybe you're not seeing, but I think many people who are coming who are fans of both, I think if you're a major fan of Candace, you're probably more than likely a feminist and have no problem with girl bosses. The same way I feel like if you're a huge fan of Andrew Wilson, you probably can't stand feminists. You probably are someone who's a bit more pro a lot of his arguments. I think you saw a little bit of that just in the fandom in general, kind of building up and charging up before we had the debate. But once before you go respond, Rob Gainflex with a super chat, he says Andrew Wilson didn't even know what the Krabby Patty formula was. Clearly, he lost the debate. And thank you greatly for the super chat there. You can get it on screen here.
Dude, I was just thinking, to Groyp Gangflex. Great minds think alike, dude. Because if you recall, we were sending each other voice messages earlier. We were talking about how black pilled it was, and I had a SpongeBob reference also. I was like, the black pill. It's like when Pearl gives Mr. Krabs the pill in the morning. That's how big the black pill was watching this debate.
You got to force it down. You got to choke it down.
Yeah, exactly, dude. But yeah, that's actually a good angle I hadn't considered, was how are women viewing this and how are men viewing this, or rather, like, you know, the manosphere type men viewing this, which is the kind of men that would be watching. And yeah, dude, that's one of those things, and it got me thinking. Is this would be my critique, or one of my critiques of Andrew Wilson?
Yeah,
is he never adjusted to what was going on in the debate. You know, him coming to it in the beginning with kind of this open, honest inquiry, totally fine. Like, that's what I would have done. That's what anyone should have done. But she clearly is doing these insane deflections. She's interrupting. She complains when you interrupt and interject. She is just all over the place and avoiding questions, but he never adjusted to it. Like, I think about the Nick and Piers Morgan, interaction a couple months ago, where Nick adjusted to it. Same thing with the Nick and Destiny debates, as he comes in with this, all right, let's talk. But as soon as the opposition gets hostile, he gets hostile back. He doesn't. There's some debates where playing the modern. I think that's what Andrew Wilson wanted to do, was come across like the reasonable one and let this stupid black bitch flame out. And it didn't work because she didn't flame out any more than she normally does. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it didn't come across that way.
Yeah, we had a bit of a prediction going on, which I'm now realizing I don't think I gave the results of on the kick stream, but it was like, whoa, Candace Owens crash out. And like she got close like at the beginning, and there's like another portion, I think in the third, like in one of like the latter thirds of the debate, where she kind of got close again too, but she never did. Yeah. And I think that when she kind of cooled off finally towards the end, and was doing the girl boss stuff there towards the end, I'm overwhelmingly positive that you lost this debate, things like that. I think she was beginning to really kind of maybe she was seeing the reactions of how people were on the stream. I would imagine even if she didn't see him herself, her team was probably communicating to her, everybody thinks you're winning, this is in the bag, you got this. That may have also added to it. Same way, I also think that there was a clear change of demeanor from Andrew Wilson towards the end of which, and we'll talk about this in the green room, and part of me is led to believe that, and right around the time when I think that he had this demeanor change, it was towards the very end, it almost made it feel like Andrew was exceptionally pissed because Candace violated a portion of the contract, which would make sense if he's the one that ponied the money up for the contract that then she then violated. And he probably was just like maybe angry about something, because like the conversation that ensued was, that's not, I'm not answering the questions like this from Candace. She's like, because that's not on the contract. And then they started talking about like, well, what you did agree to. And I think you could kind of tell Andrew Wilson maybe was like a lot more pissed at that moment, which makes me think maybe something else happened behind the scenes in terms of actual negotiations about what should have been going down and then did or didn't happen.
Well, and that's another thing, is like the whole background to this debate. It already kind of puts Andrew on the back pedal, where he is the one seeking out the debate. He is the one offering money to do it in the first place. And so it's like to be there and then have it just kind of be a nothing burger. He's the real, like, of Candace and him and PBD, he's the real loser of those three. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, all she had to do was not come across like a total idiot. And at best, it's up to at best and worst, it's up to interpretation. As you can see, people are interpreting it however they want.
Right. Right.
So
like
it wasn't decisive.
Right. Like one of the first chats we had on the stream today, I'm not going to scroll up to read it, but I'll paraphrase. It's like from it said like, I'm a huge street and is that what it said? Did it have the hard R in there? I can't remember. Anyways, he was acting like one. He said something like, white men or something like white men just hate Candace. She wants something like that. It's like, dude, it's just like crazy the way people have like reacted to it. But before we get into like the reaction, the aftermath, what I did want to play is the debate that I think that should have gone viral. And this is the one where I think Andrew probably had his best moment when he was pushing in and kind of really kind of honing in on the lack of evidence, and why she thinks the way she does, trying to structure Candace Owens, from A to B to C. Why do you think this, right? Can you give me more than you think it? But first, with the super chat that just came in, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Again, Groyper Gang Flex. He says, it's funny watching the performative J Spur grift type support and hang on every word of a black woman and go to bat for chocolate lunacy. And there is something to be said inside of that, which I do think that what you're seeing with this coalition that's kind of under the drapes of Candace Owens, it does speak to me as like basically, she's rallying this group, right? This group of people. And this group of people is who falls in that category, in that camp. Well, you're getting like Ian Carroll types. Well, you're getting like Jake Shield types. Well, you're getting like Dan Bilzerian types. And those types are the ones that have been the first people to come out and say, we need to be unifying with the left. We need to be co-joining with the left, so long as they're Israel critical, right? And it's like they want to concede and compromise on every other issue they may have, every other key value they may have, because they're critical of Israel. And it does speak to me that maybe what you're seeing is the beginning of this center maybe group that's Israel critical. Like they're not left wingers per se, but they're definitely not right wingers, because you can tell by the fact of like they're not concerned about women's behavior, like modern women. Think maybe very easy tells like that. And I think those things combined, I do think it's going to feed into this broader energy with these people like Al Sayed and others. The closer we get to 2028, of putting your energy behind and your money behind people who are critical of Israel, despite their wanting to abolish police, or abolish police, forgive me, despite their willingness to defund the police, well, despite their willingness to, and whatever other crazy kind of left-wing value they have. And to me, it's a very, I don't know, it feels like it's a very dark time to have that energy build up as we're going into 2028, because I can see a lot of those people just going, well, you know what, I'll vote for AOC because at least she's like not a Zionist. And I can see that kind of being a mechanism that people will be thinking as we get closer to 2028, especially if the right wing can't put forward anybody besides JD Vance and Marco Rubio. So I see it going a pretty rough direction.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that because I think we're in this we're in this sort of political downslope, because as you know, for the majority of people, political engagement is kind of like a feeling. It's like there's seasons to it, there's ebbs and flows. They're not invested in it, checking this stuff every day like you are, Atlas. And I think right now we're kind of in a political pit. And I remember there was a super chat a few weeks ago about how like Nick's viewership, someone was like, haha, your viewership's down. And then he was like, well, I don't really count the views and everyone's viewership is down. And then you look at the numbers and it totally is. Yeah. And I think it's just like,
the political season.
There's nothing new or nothing that even feels new going on. So people are just kind of checking out. And it's just like this. It's like the most nothing ever happens I've ever felt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that to me is the biggest point, is like, and I don't know how this will come across. I don't know how this will even be, interpreted or like accepted by you guys. But to me, it's like at this point, I don't even care who killed Charlie Kirk. If it was Israel, what's even the point? Because look, he was a man. He had a wife. He had children. The wife, she's her own thing. But think of the kids. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so you got that going on. But my point is politically, totally wasted. And now it's like you said, Alex Jones said, or whoever, it's a black hole now. What could have been a rallying cry has just become this insane spurg out that we're still a year later dealing with the fallout.
Agreed. And that's why, to me, it's like it is definitely it's a black hole. And I don't think, I mean, I think wasted in the sense of like what it should have been used for. Obviously, like the
Mm.
political capital of like in the moment, the recognition of like and towards the left, and like really kind of having that mask off moment of like, no, the left is like, yeah, your leftist neighbor is just as insane as this person. That's how these people have been wired to think. They claim themselves to be this and this. And so I definitely agree, wasted in that sense, but I do think it's going to be used in some way, shape, or form. And I think maybe the kind of way, I guess maybe I've said it in the Discord is, I think in terms of like when you're looking at it in the media sense, because what happens, where does all this energy go when the trial goes and he gets charged? So maybe it doesn't get aggravated murder, but regardless, what happens when Tyler Robinson gets convicted unanimously in like 30 minutes by a trial, or by a jury, and he goes to jail for the murder of Charlie Kirk? Where does it all go? Where does that energy go? Well, I think it'll pivot. And I think it'll start doing the same kind of continuity fallacies, but towards like the judge and the system at large. Then they're going to start being like, well, then now the judge is in on it because see the way that he itched his nose right when the jury gave their saying. It's going to go to that level, if not already. And I think the use that has is not for us at all, but it is the same thing that Nick spoke about not too long ago, which is that the mainstream media are going to be like, you see what happens when you watch YouTube videos, too many YouTube videos and YouTube channels? You end up thinking this. He's like, and then look how the evidence. It's like, it's clear as day. He's like, there was not even a fight from the jury, but you have people on YouTube screaming in your face that, Israel did it and it's all there. We just haven't found it yet. And I think that it will be used as a cudgel to beat down alternate media at large, but specifically the Israel did it crowd, the Israel's behind everything crowd. And they're going to, and because we're already seeing how the average person already finds so much of this to be like insane. I have normie friends that find Candace Owens to be insane. I even have normie friends that think Tucker Carlson is insane. And, inside of the circle, inside of our echo chambers, we might not see that as much, but, I have conversations, much as it might be unbelievable. I do talk to people outside of, outside of my room. And there's an energy there that this has kind of lost it's already lost its pull, its attraction. Because I think during the 2024 era, there were a lot of people who were willing to lend their ear to this Israel issue because it felt like what they were saying made a lot of sense at the time. We're now past that time. And I think that that's what use it will have, is it'll become a cudgel and go, oh yeah, but what did you say about this? And maybe you do see that attached to maybe some form of a censorship effort, although not like what we saw prior to 2023, but in some way. And if it can't be censorship, it'll be used to delegitimize, to take away the credibility of someone by saying, oh, you're a fan of Candace, and they're going to like laugh and they're going to be like, this fucking guy. And that's the way I see it being used as you get further. But where will those people go? Because the right wing may not accept them. They may slide to the left and go with Al Sayed, who's doing weird ass Blues Clues renditions. He's like, as long as you're critical of Israel, that's all that matters. It's like, that's not actually all that matters. And having one thing that we agree on is like not enough to concede and compromise on all other values. Like, wow, they're critical of Israel. And it's like, yeah, but they also think you can chop your dick off and be a woman. Like, that person's insane. We need to have some kind of like, standard, if you will, of what we're willing to accept and tolerate and not go away from it. I know I've been saying go to that clip. We will go to the clip after the super chat. Thank you again. Groyper getting flex. He says that clip of Ian Carroll being like, come on, Nick, you're the Israel guy and you won't say Israel did it. It's so weird, etc., etc. Be evergreen material. And I do agree because it was almost like it was expected. It should be expected that anything that happens that's dangerous or like that in our political, it should be assumed that Israel did it. And it's like, that's not how you gain credibility. It may work differently, to the average person of like side-by-side conversations, but to consider yourself a serious politico and pundit, you need to engage with things like how it will be engaged within the system, which is, okay, what's the evidence? Because even if you're not in a court, most political debates happen in a structured way where you have to provide evidence for your claims. People take it seriously. It's a very strong form of discussion and debate. But to throw those things away in the name of like wanting to be right or first, I think was just radically just showing and telling for how a lot of people are. And we'll get to the aftermath. I think we'll save some more, a majority of that for the aftermath. But here is the clip to me that I think should have went viral if I can click on it, which is the one where Andrew Wilson probably at his best moment, really kind of nailing down on Candace her squeamishness for not wanting to provide any kind of real evidence. But here it is.
And I think France and Israel are involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. And I'm going to put that out there with full confidence.
Okay.
I also
Involvement.
now have-
I understand.
Yeah.
So you
That's-
think you with full confidence, you think that,
Yeah, I think
that
Israel's
France
involved.
and Israel.
Yeah, I mean, the person that gave me that thing that I reported said that French Foreign Legion were on the ground that day.
Mhm.
Again, this would be at a professional limitation for me to then go and probe that information that I handed over. I can't do that. I'm not
But
the
you
United
don't have
States
any
government.
positive evidence of
Okay,
that.
okay.
right?
Liz, I don't. Can you just stop? It's actually just like annoying to hear you keep saying positive evidence. I've just asked me what I think, and I just tell you, yes, I think
Well,
they are
that's
involved.
a claim.
No, I said here's what I think.
I have every
I
right
think-
to ask you about your claim.
Yeah, but
and if
I
there's
said,
positive evidence
in
for
this
your
statement,
claim.
I literally just said I think, and I am allowed to think. And
Yeah,
you
you're
keep
allowed to
saying,
think,
do you have
but you're making
positive
a
evidence?
claim.
I have tons of positive evidence that I'm allowed to think. Yes.
I agree. You're allowed to think.
Okay. So
Nobody's disputing whether or not
yeah,
Candace
but like
Owens is allowed to think. What I'm asking is
but
you have
what's your issue then?
positive
What is your issue with the statement?
evidence.
I think
Uh-huh.
that Israel is involved.
That's
I
not
do.
what. That's not just what you said. You said
I did
that
say I
it's
think.
with full confidence.
Yes.
You
That
would
I
think that if you had full
can you have confidence
confidence,
to think when you think?
if I said, for instance, I think I'm going to be late to work, right, with full confidence, I would say my evidence for that is that I'm 20 minutes away and I need to be there in 5.
Andrew.
That's how you would know whether or not you had full
I'm just going
confidence.
to tell you something.
Hang on, let me finish.
Sure.
If it was the case that I said I have full confidence I'm going to be late to work, I would say my evidence that I'm going to be is that work is 20 minutes away, right, and I have to be there in 5. So I have full confidence. That's why I would think that. So I'm asking if you think that Israel and France were involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and you say with full confidence, I'm just asking for the evidence, or at least walk me through the mindset of why it is that you could think that with
I actually
evidence.
don't have to walk you through why I think. I can give you something that I think with full confidence. I think with full confidence that you lost the substance of this debate, and now you're moving toward things that I have said that I think, which I can do. I'm
They're
allowed to think
pertinent to
that.
this debate.
Actually, would you like to remind him of what our debate claims actually were?
And would you like to remind you said I could ask you about any of these things
I
to my
said
heart's
feel
content?
free, but you do not get to structure how I'm allowed to reply or ask me
I'm
why
not
are you allowed
structuring
to
how
think.
you're allowed to reply. I'm just asking you direct questions.
I have full confidence that you do not feel that you represented your claim well. And so now what you came
That's
prepared
nice. I
to
just
do is
wanna
to
know-
present yourself like a professor of
I
fallacies.
just want to know.
And to say, you are not allowed to say that. You can't. It's
You
my
can
podcast.
say whatever you want.
Well, I
Nobody's
said it.
disputing that.
It
I'm
It
asking.
seems like you are disputing
I'm
it.
asking
I think that
specifically
when this
why
is
you
all
think
said
that.
and done, I've already explained to you. I explained at the beginning of this
Mhm.
why I think Israel is ultimately going
France.
to be proven to have involvement in this.
Mhm.
I just explained to you in the middle, and now you're wanting me to structure the sentence or provide evidence. You don't have to. You're just allowed to think, and I've explained to you my thought process. I don't need to structure it in a sentence. If you feel like a professor today, you picked the wrong day.
Don't you think that like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people would want to know what Candace Owens' positive evidence for why it is
No, I
that
don't-
Israel and France were involved in the most traumatic public assassination of Gen Z's lifetime is?
That's why they watch my podcast.
So you're just going to drip to them?
So like that one was like what I thought should have went viral, and I think for a couple of reasons. For one, it's obviously that was her weaseling her way out of, is like she's trying to change the framing of what Andrew's even actually asking her, which Andrew is asking her, okay, so what are the things that make you think that Israel is involved? To which then she turns in and says, what is this? Like, what, a girl's not allowed to think anymore? She again scoffing, looking at PBD. And then she kept digging her heels in on it. And again, that's why I labeled this the way I did. The clip that went viral with the previous one we played versus the one that should have went viral. And I think this is probably the most telling moment because you can kind of see everything of the debate all encapsulated at once. PBD not saying anything. PBD just sitting in the cuck chair, just literally just no reaction from him at all. Yeah. And then what you do have though is you have Candace Owens, dancing, flailing, alternating, but specifically not putting forward any of the actual reasons why she thinks that Israel or the French were involved. And then again, Andrew Wilson not capitalizing on what I think would have been a very easy thing to capitalize on, which is to say what you said earlier, which I can't remember if you said in the green room or at the beginning, which is, okay, so you have no evidence. Okay, well, we'll move on then. I guess I'll ask you about something else then. And that's all we got. But your thoughts on that clip, Josh?
Well, first off, I have to say, you said when we were texting before this, related to something else, you said great minds think alike. It's crazy that we were both like, because I had not looked at the craft document, the prep work, because I got here like a minute before we started, so I hadn't looked, and we were both on the same page about that exact clip. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought basically, dude, that it perfectly summed up the whole thing, which is Andrew kind of going down on these tangents and not seizing on the moment, and Candace Owens just like barking and not shutting the hell up. Like I do think at times, yeah, sometimes you should let someone write out their thoughts, but sometimes you have to interject, dude. And it's like she's literally just like doing everything but answering the question possible. She goes, right. Oh, it's like you said, I can't do this. Well, what about that? You're not entitled. So I know that we said, apparently she said in the preparation for this, you can ask me about whatever you want. I didn't say I would answer you.
Yeah, right.
Like, okay.
Right.
And it's like, dude,
the sleight of hand.
You think you have been for a year alleging that Israel did this. Why?
Right.
Well, I mean, that's go watch my show.
Yeah.
You're here right now.
Yeah.
What do you think we're here for? Well, what's funny is that's actually exactly what she's here for, is to get people to watch her show. Right. I'll take the $300,000. I'll take I get to stream it on my channel as well and post ads. Yeah. And go watch the Candace Owens show, where I'll tease on the 1 year anniversary of Charlie Kirk dying, I might share another percentage of my actual opinion on the matter.
Yeah, and so instead of that going viral, what we get is the seven charges clip, and it's like, I guess maybe to move the conversation a bit more to the aftermath has been the depressive. I mean, it's obviously the politics have been bleak for a while, and I'm someone who will always say, like, the average person is retarded. This is why the masses, fuck the multitudes, many things. But it's another thing entirely to witness it in mass and see it over and over and over again. And, and I can stand some of the more, maybe, how do you even say this? Like, the white community response to Candace on, who are pro Candace has been one thing, but some of the black community reaction, I hate even separating it by race, but it's been just insane. Is you even had some people who were saying things like, well, this lady who even CCG Bryson responded to said something to the effect of, well, more people watched Candace's stream, so that means she won. And, but not ironically, like, not sarcastically. And it was just like, there's no way that you think this, right? There's no way that that's like what you think of. And what I would say is, it does remind me, like, the debate reminds me of the debate that Andrew Wilson and Owen Schroyer were in earlier this year, I do believe. And the reason it reminds me of that is because Owen Schroyer was right on the merits, but did a terrible job debating. As in, like, he had the right argument. He had the correct position. But he was up against someone who performed better in the debate. And at that time, it was Andrew Wilson versus Owen Schroyer. And so you have Owen Schroyer, who's right by all accounts, but, like, just didn't do a good enough job performing. So many people view that as a loss towards Owen Schroyer. The same way that it's like, I think that Andrew Wilson has the correct position, but argued it in such a poor way that you're still left with, it looks like to most people, obviously Candace is the winner. And, I guess I'm more so like trying to view, like, towards the future of what this may become or where it goes from here. But obviously, to treat the debate as if it's kind of like any kind of resounding or signifying thing, I don't think that's the case. If anything, what I would say is I think you had a couple maybe easy to see predictions that you could have said about this. And without going into detail in the other ones, I think we got the worst outcome, which is that Andrew Wilson had a poor showing, which now converts into the Candace crowd like beating on their chests now. Now they're all energized. Now they're like, see, we won the argument. Now they may get even louder. And well, and like I said in the Discord, like there are consequences for being wrong, and especially being wrong and being loud about it too. So I'm more so just kind of concerned with what the fallout will be when this inevitably goes to trial, when inevitably Tyler Robinson is ultimately, convicted. Where does that have, like, what does that look like? Because I think that's going to be like the next chapter of this conversation is like where that goes and how, and maybe how tolerant the system will be of it even after the trial. Like, how tolerant is everyone going to be continually with seeing people like Diligent Denizen and Candace Owens and, Chris Menahan and everyone else that's involved in this? Then looking at like the judge. Now they're going into Tony Graff's, history. Now we're looking at like the people who transported Tyler Robinson to prison now. Like now we're going to be looking at that. At what point does it end? And if there is no end, you may actually see somebody force it to end. Which, what does that then look like too? So I'm kind of more so trying to think of where does this all go? Because certainly it wasn't productive and it's not helping anything right now. And I think it's going to just provide a huge amount of liability for the movement in general. Not to say like the movement, but to say like just right wing dissident politics in general. And then even further from that, the Israel issue in and of itself. Will this give an easy, ample amount of ammunition for people to go and see, this is why we need to censor you. This is why we need to restrict these people, because it may be an easier thing for people in the average normal person to accept that, viewing how far from reality it is if he's convicted and it's very easy for the jury to see, and then she's entirely on something else and not providing evidence. They may just, want to put a pin in it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's so many factors to consider. I think, I almost think Candace Owens might be let off because she's a black woman, and Nick Fuentes might be targeted. You know what I mean? The
true. The true.
Once the DSA becomes president, that will they even bother? Like, will that be the reasons they even come after us at that point? You know what I mean? And for the Jews, it's like them killing two birds with one stone. The liberals come after Nick Fuentes because he's a white supremacist, and
Have you seen some of what the Al Sayed has been saying? Not that he's not that he's like DSA himself, but he is very close to it. And I think you would definitely argue it's definitely like DSA adjacent.
Sure.
He's talking about all of this Israel criticism, like, right? He's critical of Israel, like no corporate money, no more corporate money in the politics, no more foreign money in the politics. But then when he's talking about Jewish people, he was like, no, he's like, it's a terrible thing to be anti-Semitic. All these people that hate Jews. And so I do see it going in the direction, which is where Tucker Carlson is at, where it's going to be, they may cut that off, is that criticism of Israel, the government, the nation of Israel, is one thing. Criticism of Jews and Jewish people as an ethnicity or religion is where they maybe cut the line. Because that seems to be where the DSA is at. The DSA is like very critical of Israel because of what the Israeli military, the IDF, is doing to kids. But they themselves, the left wing, is the party of everyone's equal, everyone's all the same. They may not play ball with racism or discrimination. And if that's also the same vein and line of which where the right wing and this containment group is, Tucker Carlson, JD, and the rest, that may actually be exactly where they press the knife, which is censor and restrict and shadow ban the people who go beyond just criticizing Israel. And it may be made easier by the fact of where all this energy is going. And obviously Candace Owens is not going to stand up there. I mean, you can just look at like tweets from Candace Owens from 2022. She was calling people anti-Semites herself, criticizing them for being, racist and whatnot. So I can see that being where the cleave mark is laid, if you will.
Well, and it's one of those things where, so we obviously, the debate was yesterday. We have the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
I think from a like from where you and I are, Atlas, what should be done about Candace Owens? I think Nick made a smart play, which was dissociate from her and put her position down. Say, that is her position. It is stupid. This is my position and why I believe it. And I think that worked well because of how popular she was getting, especially after Charlie Kirk's assassination. She obviously has huge viewership, more than most people do, more than Nick does, you know, at least on YouTube and stuff like that. And she is insanely popular. So the question is, she is a liability for our positions. What do we do about her? Well, I think positioning ourselves as opposite of her, good starting point. Andrew Wilson wanted to debate her to show that she is wrong and doesn't know what she's talking about. Now, to people that can read between the lines, yes, we saw that in the debate, but the people that can read between the lines already knew that, so nothing was really gained. The people that were following Candace Owens now just feel emboldened, you know what I mean? I think at this point, so if the question is, what do we do about Candace Owens? Ignore her. I don't think Nick should talk about her anymore unless, you know, there's, you know, it's been a year for her to kind of just keep like spoon feeding the occasional, like, my sources tell me, just stop talking about it. It's been a year.
Yeah.
Like, I think Nick should respond to the debate because, you know, he's going to have to, and then just not speak about her again unless something else major happens and it's unavoidable.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think not giving her oxygen, you know, and I do agree with Nick. I think that a lot of what's been going on in the political system since 2023 almost puts it into place of like where like it's like it would be impossible for them to go back to like the original forms of censorship because it's so much has been shown, so much has come out of the Pandora box. I think you would have a hard time really kind of putting it all in without really showing your hand. And I think they're kind of playing, you know, they're playing on the fence with that. They may find the most marginal things to step in on, you know, maybe delete a channel here and there, but not once again bring back this kind of blanket form of censorship. And I do think the argument still needs to be made, which is, and here's the thing, I don't think you even need to be intentional about it. I think you just look at the objective realities of what has been going on. And here's from the way that I see it, which is there was political capital and was for a couple of weeks from the right wing specifically, and their willingness to up the ante of what they were willing to do against the left. Maybe more so in terms of, instead of playing nice with them, look at them for what kind of evil creatures they are and actually act on it, you know, put it into law, you know, actually make it actionable. So you have this massive collapse of this political capital and this political will that existed when he was shot, that dissipates. And then now what you then are looking at is that all that political will towards the left has been dissipated. And what she's gathered and garnered is, and sure, not every person in Candace Owens' audience is going to be voting for the left wing or DSA candidates, but what she has galvanized is a huge amount of people who will be looking at politics through the lens of the Israel issue is the most important. And for many regards, I would actually agree with them. But so much so that they are willing to then sacrifice and big tent the same way that Charlie Kirk big tented the conservative movement. They're going to big tent, but they're going to pitch their stake on Israel. And so long as any candidate, any person, individual or otherwise, is critical of Israel, they'll be willing to vote for them. So on the front end, you have Candace and others taking that political will away, or really kind of like, you know, obfuscating it, like shoving it down. And then what the end result of that is they basically have become a channel, a pipeline, if you will, for many of those same people that galvanize to be voting for left-wing crazies simply because they were critical of Israel or critical of AIPAC or something of that nature, something of that effect. And so whether intentional or unintentional, I think you could frame that as a left-wing. That's a left-wing operation. At the bare minimum, whether it was, and again, if it was unintentional, it doesn't even matter, because that's what matters is the result. And if the result is you galvanized a bunch of people, blinded them to what the left actually is, and made it feasible for them to vote for a, you know, LGBTQ, you know, queer liberating, transing the children, but they're critical of Israel, viable vote for said person, you have in effect aided the left. So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it down the line of like how that really may serve as like this was the big swing for the left, both to get people to not view them for what they are, but also to get people excited to vote for them again. Even though the culture war would tell you off the back of the 2024 win was that everybody was done with the left. Everybody was sick and tired of the left. It was another resounding big win for the Trump movement, the more conservative movement. And if all of a sudden in 28 they come marching back in, they didn't get any less woke. They didn't get any this, it's like the same people are there. It's still Newsom, it's still AOC, it's still, Jasmine Crockett and all these other individuals. So what really changed? And well, what changed was the right wing squandered every ounce and ability of actual political momentum and will that they had. And then Candace Owens and others aided those disaffected people, not out of politics with their dismay, but over to the left to keep the thing churning. And so to me, I think when you look at that, it is. I think it is a little insidious. And I would have questions of how unintentional or intentional all of this really is.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it. I mean, in that way, but essentially, yeah. Where I guess the white pill I have is that, because obviously we're talking about this issue in the lens of Candace Owens in this debate that we're reviewing. This is a flash in the pan, and in a month, no one will even remember it. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that Candace Owens is still not influential and whatnot, and that the DSA. But I think you are absolutely right that it's more so the left co-opting the anti-Israel movement into that into that category, and it's at the point where even Fox News is open about it. Like they're not even having to sugarcoat and lie. They can just say like, look at these guys. They're playing into the hands. You reviewed a clip on the show where these leftist politicians wouldn't denounce Hassan Piker.
Right.
And then they were like, well, you have Nick Fuentes in there. And they were like, oh, but see, we do disavow
Right.
Nick Fuentes.
Exactly. You're standing on it. They're like, no, you should be like us. We hate our radicals. Like we gatekeep. We ensure they don't even get close to levels of power.
I think our best play to counteract exactly what you're talking about is to double down, dig your heels in on the GOP has got to go. I had a conversation about that with my boss recently, and he was, it's the same conversation we always have, but he was like, I still just don't understand why you won't vote Republican. And I'm like, dude, a Republican won the popular vote for the first time in like 2 decades. And he ran on the issues that we care about. And then during his first year, a liberal, the mainstream story, which I do believe, is that a insane liberal person radicalized by the fact that we won, shot one of the most popular political right-wing pundits and commentators in the world.
Yeah.
And you did nothing. You shut everything. They shut everything down. Why would I vote for them?
Right.
Well, even what are you going to do? Vote for the Democrats? No. I mean, not me personally, but why would I vote for? I'm not going to reward them. If I always lose, why would I give them what they want? I think we have to absolutely double down on that. And we have to make it clear that's what we're doing. Don't just not vote. Be vocal about it in whatever way you can.
Yeah. Well, and I would even go one step further of like, they not only did they do nothing, they did do something. I think it was Ken Klippenstein who reported this, I think like the day of when it happened, but they added a specific threat to the domestic terrorist. It's like a subcategory of like a domestic terrorist. And the tag it's like NVE, right? It's like nihilistic violent extremist. When it was like, again, here we are. I mean, we had, what was her name? Audrey Hale in Tennessee. There's been so many of these transgender shootings specifically towards, white Christian areas. And what we get is we're not going to say trans violent extremists. We're going to say nihilistic violent extremists, we're going to use a vague term that goes so broad that you could put just as many right wingers under that category as you could left wingers, and it's like, and to act as if like the nihilism is what is the deranged portion that is what's making them terroristic. It's like it's not. It's like the trans thing actually matters because it goes into the same vein of Tyler Robinson, which is many of these psychopathic, schizophrenic, deranged lunatics who want to go kill people because they're transgender. That's the key thing. They're doing it because they actually do think that the current government, the administration, or otherwise, those who are, the senators, the right wingers, Republicans, they think that those people are going to come after them. Like they're going to come genocide and kill transgenders. Like they actually believe that, which is what part and parcel, part of the reason why you have people who are so willing to go and we're celebrating the killing of Charlie Kirk, because they do believe that the person who perished was someone who is going to bring about evil towards them. Like this is part of the perception. And instead, you get the tag that's, nihilistic, violent extremist, which is just a slap in the face. It's like, is it that hard? Like, what are we terrified of? Like, what are we scared of now at this point? And I think that goes back into the nature of like of who Donald Trump is, the Trump administration itself. And let's not kid ourselves either, to the point of what we're looking towards in 2028. And it has been for some time. The main mechanism of the presidency and the presidential election is it's a referendum on the previous president. It has less to do with the parties getting ready to go in and more so how people feel about the party going out, which many people vote against now. Many people are actually showing up at voting booths to vote against things more so than they're even voting for things anymore. And that just shows the overall lack of enthusiasm across the board. But you're spot on here, which is like, if we're to blame anybody for if the Republicans don't win in 28, they need to blame themselves. That's the top reason is you lost because you didn't do what you said. It has less to do with like, oh, people wanted to go vote Democrat and whatever. It's that's actually downstream from the fact that no one's enthusiastic about wanting 4 more years of what you've given them. And the 4 years you're about to give us is a huge fucking scam. No deportations, massive enrichment scams, and shit we're going to hear about for Lord knows how long, which only bolsters the left wing's idea that all these people on the right wing are just a bunch of, gross billionaires who've been brainwashed to love billionaires, right? It's like, it all feeds into that. But what we're going to be getting is they're going to blame people like Thomas Massey. I think they will rightfully blame Candace Owens, although I think she deserves blame to a lesser degree. But they're going to place all that blame on people who like just, couldn't get in there and vote down ticket for Republican. And how can you not zoom out? How can the average person, I don't even know why I'm asking the question, but if you zoom out, like we are here because that has been the consistent loop for years on end, which is sticking your nose up and going and voting Republican and being satisfied with the absolute dog shit that you get. And therein, you do deserve what you tolerate, which is if you tolerate time in and time again, you get these shitty politicians who scam, who lie, and don't bring about the actual promises they push for. Well, then you're left with that. You're left with what you get, which is once again convincing yourself, well, because this person did this crazy thing in COVID, it's like, well, it's not even an act of voting for someone anymore. It's a matter of we have to change the mechanism of which we are voting in, which is the lesser of two evils, which is the GOP. Because all the GOP has done now is they act as the consolidating block for the left wing. Because if you go back in time, you go down the line, it's left wing does things. Left wing does crazy shit. They do this and that and otherwise. Why? Because they believe what they want to do and they actually go and do it. Right wing comes in because the public goes, holy F, that's way too much. That was insane. We got to bring in the other side because that what they were doing was way too radical, way out of bounds. The right wing comes in. They do nothing to peel back what the left has done. They agree with you and shake their head and they shake their fists at everything the left has done, but they do nothing to repeal what's happened by the left. And they do nothing themselves to do anything actionable that would be preventive towards them doing again if they come back into power. And so then what ends up happening is the right wing basically sits for 4 years doing nothing on their hands. And what does that act as? That acts as consolidation. It basically shores up everything the crazy left-wing administration did the last 4 years. And so when the left wing comes back into power, they start where they left off last time because the right wing did nothing to change the timeline. So then when they come in, they do 4 more years of insanity just for the right wing to come back in, and the right wing consolidates it one more time. It acts like a cement block. It's like, actually, yeah, we're going to ensure that these are permanent changes. And then we wonder why we're always playing from behind. I mean, not me. I think we've kind of nailed it here at this point. But that is why the GOP has to be subverted, destroyed, eliminated, or another way, shape, or form, forced to actually reckon with the consequences of what it's doing. Because if it doesn't, it has no reason to change, which means we have to go for the incentive structure, which is we're not voting unless you do what we ask, which is why we need more and more people to be in the position of withholding their vote. Not playing into, I think, a very easy dichotomy, which is, well, I'm voting for the left, because an easy argument against that is the average person goes, well, the left is insane. You can't do that. So don't play into their hand. Say, I'm not voting. Say, I'm definitely not going to help the Democrats, but until the right wing steps up to the plate for what I'm asking for, I'm definitely not going to do it. And then the person responding to you has to engage with how the right wing's not good enough. That's got to be the way that you kind of play that out. But go ahead. I kind of rated there, Josh.
No, you're good, man. And so I want to run this by you and the audience. I want to kind of gauge everybody on this one, because if you recall, it was a couple of months ago we were doing Groyper Report, and I said, because Nick was advocating for we need a dark horse in 28, and I said 2028 is lost. 2032 is hopefully our year. I still feel that way. So this is kind of like how I've been. This is not what I hope would happen. Obviously, what I hope would happen is that Trump would get his shit together, and then things would get better, and then we could win in 28 also. But I don't think that's possible. This is my best case scenario for us: is 2028 comes up, and the left wing is super incentivized. They're amped up. They're ready to go. They've got whoever their candidate is for president. And then you have the Republican Party drag out all the milquetoast nobodies. They drag out Marco Rubio. They drag out J.D. Vance, whoever else is going to be up on that crap-ass stage.
Yeah.
And then you get someone like a Nick Fuentes, like a James Fishback to run. And then you see them do out in the open as much as they possibly can what they're doing to James Fishback right now, where they cut him out. I think this will be the scenario. Someone like that will run. He will be the Trumpian candidate like from 2016, but in 2028. Yeah. And they cut him out completely. And it kind of leaves this like, people like us are like, this is bullshit. And even the like milquetoast kind of middle people are like, it didn't seem right. Like I told you about this the other day. This is what's going on in South Carolina. They just cut this guy out of this special senatorial election.
Yeah.
Just because he's a young guy. You know what I mean? They just whatever. And It's like, if enough people see that, they'll be like, ooh, I didn't like that, but what are they going to do? What are you going to do? And then you get 4 years of whoever, and it's hell on earth. It's worse than we could even imagine. Again, I'm not saying I want this to happen. I'm saying this is the best case scenario.
Yeah.
They go hard to the point where it's starting to like radical. It's turning like every young white man into to H-man. It's turning young like conservative women and even young liberal women into being like, damn, I just got raped. This isn't good. You know what I mean? And like, and it's starting to kind of like go, maybe this liberal multicultural hellhole isn't that good. Then the dark horse comes back, or you get a new one. And then people are like, it's Weimar, bring me the chancellor.
Right.
And that's our 2032 best case scenario.
Yeah. Well, kind of, I guess you don't really need acceleration when it's heading there anyways, right? It's like, I think even outside of the attempts to accelerate things, I think it's obviously because of everything that's playing out and the direction it keeps taking. It does seem to be that's the direction it's going to go. I still would say I would not count out someone having a viable chance in 2028. I do think that what you're saying though, it does line up. I think the idea that they have a better chance in 28 than they do in 2032, I think you're correct about. I think if we do go through another 4 more years, it'll swing right back to where it was, how the pendulum swings. It'll be a referendum on it.
Right.
I guess the issues I have with it, and here's the thing too, long-term thinking as well, is now if we're looking at this trajectory, like the left wing is going to win in 2028, I think actually it becomes then a positive that we didn't get the Supreme Court ruling we wanted on birthright citizenship. And here's why. Because I think if we had actually gotten the ruling that we wanted, the left wing would be able to come in with something that they could actually add to why they're going to pack the court. And so I think because it stayed in the ballpark, it stayed as it was, it stayed in the left wing camp, it won't be something where the left can come in and argue for why they must pack the court, or why there needs to be, 13 justices now, or 11, or whatever they want to boost it to, because they have a ruling they don't want. So they're going to just force their people in there. So then it becomes a bit of a wipe over there. However, I'm not sure if enough people have, and I agree with you on this, I'm not sure if enough people, if we're far enough away from the problem that Trump is for people to recognize it, or if people are feeling the consequences and correctly categorizing them as such enough for the 2028 dark horse to win. And part of that, I think, is that you're already seeing it with like James Fishback, which is, as much as I love and support the guy, as much as a good campaign that he ran, he still is clearly going up against the problem, which is, a few $100,000 versus 50 million. And one of those has a huge more amount of capability than the other. And so despite how correct you may be in the argument, much like we're seeing in debates even, it still matters like how much you can reach and get everybody, as in like all voting blocks, as in the boomers, as in the evangelicals, as in the wine moms, all of that. And there's still a good bit of permeation that I think needs to be involved in that for any kind of, real chance of 2028. I do think the dark horse will be there. I mean, I think that someone's going to, whether they are an actual quantifiable dark horse or not, I do think that someone who's outside of the Trump administration is going to get play, and they're going to get play for that alone, which is here's the best candidate not attached to the Trump administration. And I think they're going to get extra airtime just for that, which whether that is a DeSantis type, DeSantis himself, or someone that's like not part of the administration, that may fit that bill. But to combine all of those things, right? You need someone who's not a part of the administration, also critical of Israel, also wants to push the America First message. Will there be someone like that in 2028? We can hope. But my chances of them both existing and then also furthermore from that winning is pretty low. I think I do agree with you. I think 2032 will have a much better chance. But how much of that hinges on the fact that the left doesn't entirely change the dynamic of what the political ecosystem is by that point, and maybe there are new issues, new concerns, because at that point maybe immigration is seen as maybe it's a stronger issue, right? In the sense that if they open the borders up, just like how we all predict they will as soon as they come into power, will that invigorate somebody in 2032? You would hope, but still unsure. And I think when you're viewing, the Candace Owens influence and how 250K live, watching, it leads you to a pit of dismay where I think that we might have a new phenomenon that we're going to have to engage with, which is left-wing Israel critical people being seen as viable, just the same as somebody who may run on the right wing. And are we going to have to cede ground to somebody who's like, I'm critical of Israel, but at least I think women should be able to vote? How does that dynamic play out? And I think that there will be some sway, and people will even get even further fractured than where they are currently. All in all, it feels pretty bleak.
Yeah, the black pill is quite large these days.
Yeah. Agreed. But I think we kind of covered the debate pretty strongly. I don't know if there's anything.
Maybe. All right, hold on.
Yeah,
throw this out there. If we're lucky, maybe the premillennial interpretation of scripture is true, because the president will be sworn in 2033, which is 2,000 years after the resurrection. Maybe a guy just shows up on the stage with a big beard, white gown, and a purple sash, and they're like, "Who's this guy?"
Hey, if it happens in our lifetime, I
That'd
think
be
that
great.
would. I think that would be preferable, right? That it happens in my lifetime than not.
I remember it was probably before like we got connected through the podcast Zeb and I were doing.
Yeah.
But I remember there was this news story about how apparently there's a giant meteorite that's supposed to either hit or like just narrowly miss Earth in like 2032 or 2033. And I was like, Yes. Like, bring it on, please.
It's some kind of mass calamity
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, there are. I will say there are times where I do think like maybe it would take something, on that level, to be invigorate to invigorate the nation closer to where it needs to be, which is unfortunate because it's not like it's only a good thing in terms of like what it consequence, which therein I also think of the timeline of like, well, what happens if Trump gets assassinated? What if this Iran war actually does begin to get serious out of hand? And then I think it's like, well, the way we've been talking about our politics, I think it goes out the window because then now you have to entertain that there's an entirely new dynamic to it, which is if that happens, will people want an election if the current administration is the one that's been waging the war the entire time? Do you want to change presidents during the middle of the wartime, at this level? I think then it gets to like now you have a different dynamic. And then even then, if the war gets out of hand, the United States begin to be, on losing footing, you may end up with the calamity that we've been talking about, which is, a draft of some kind. Maybe that results in not actually people getting drafted, but maybe that results in the civil strife going to civil war, where people are like actively like, you're not coming to my door, you're not taking my children, I don't care if he's eligible, like fuck the draft. You may actually get to that kind of element where it does things really begin to evolve. I try not to think that darkly about stuff, but it is something that I think is ultimately not off of the table, and I seem to think if we already can kind of see how fanatical the Jews are about Israel, will that fanaticism meet the level of willing to play ball on a nuclear level and an assassination and a false flag to an insane degree? I mean, they've done it before. What would stop them from doing it again? So to me, I think that is like something to actually, consider, especially we're looking, forward for that far. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think if Trump got assassinated, that would be the worst thing ever, and not because, like, if I thought Trump getting assassinated would be for our benefit, I'd be like, whatever, dude, who cares? Bring it on. No, I'm not advocating. I'm just saying, like, what if it happened? Yeah, but it would be used to the advantage of the people in power right now, which it would whatever political gamesmanship could be bought with Donald Trump's hypothetical assassination from someone else. It would only buy more of a war with Iran. It would only buy more favor with, Israel. So God save Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I hope he lives through his presidency, because I want him to live another 10 years after he gets out. He probably won't, but I want him to, so he can see how much we all despise him after the fact. Because it's so clear, all he cares about is himself and his legacy. Yeah. And I want...
What legacy at this point?
Yeah, I want it to go down the toilet and him to know it.
As much as I may be personally satisfied with that, I think I'd be more satisfied if him and his kids went to jail.
That'd be great too.
Just caught up on some kind of crypto fraud, But he's going to pardon himself anyways on his way out, and everybody else too. So that's just, I don't even think it's going to happen.
I hope he pardons himself, and then they just find some way to get him anyway. And that's one of the things that's like, see, the left, they just lie, cheat, and steal. We gotta beat them, And that would be the best case scenario. And then when we get back in, if he's still alive, he'd be like, free me. We'll be like, ooh.
Well, here's the thing: the left wing, the right wing is the one that's like, well, Fauci is pardoned. It's like, so we can't really do anything but like wag our finger at him. The left wing is like, they're like, no, guys, Trump got a pardon. Like, you can't go after him. They're like, you don't give a fuck. Like that's, and then everyone in the right is gonna be like, how are they doing this? Oh no, it's like, this is how they've been fucking doing it. Like, open your eyes,
guys. That's not fair. It's against the rules, damn it.
Yeah. And they may do it the way that you said it, which is to find some kind of like, way to like, but here's a new charge that didn't exist until after he pardoned himself. And we can definitely go, we've seen it time and time again. You pay attention to politics long enough, it's easy to spot. But I wanted to say, This is another super chat from Groyper getting flex again. Appreciate the line of super chats, brother. He says, "You're at the point where people will even know something was a false flag and still go along with it, like 9/11, but everyone knows." And that's kind of that's what I'm thinking is going to be the curious element here, which is with all eyes on this, so many people primed to be ready for one, and we do get one. What does that dynamic look like? And I think that's the one where it may be very easy for the average person to go, yeah, we're not, you're not drafting our kids. Then, and not even just in that sense, in the wartime sense, but you may begin to see like some strong, you know, dissolution, some dissonance of people's willingness to care about the rule of law. If we're getting, I mean, we're already at the point where the average person knows about like the Epstein class. The average person already thinks that, you know, the people in power like do things to kids and make money and do, you know, other vile things. Well, if it stretches even further than that to here's another planned and coordinated assassination meant to lead people to war, you may get the full weight of people who are just entirely just do not recognize the authority of someone at the United States government level. And I think that then bears its own amount of consequences in terms of just not being cohesive and the inability of the government to function. But then what also may further consequent from that, which is, you know, being terrible in war. I mean, a government that can't even convince its citizens to move or do things is going to lose a war. I mean, there's just no way. Having that lack of ability to actually maneuver and engage and get people motivated, moved, you know, the coordination, the logistics of it are going to paint a pretty bleak photo with that. But I guess I wanted to say too, that's probably it for the debate. I wanted to throw it back to you if we didn't say anything about the debate that wasn't already mentioned.
No, I big nothing burger, and I'm already purging it from my mind, and I hope everyone else does the same.
That's funny. Yeah, that's yeah, pretty much it. You know, I think the aftermath. Yeah, I guess maybe one thing I would put up on screen would be this one, the collab react screen right here, and get rid of this. It's from CCG Bryson, who I typically don't. He's okay sometimes. But he says, after suing X, watching the debate live and talking to people offline, it's confirmed that people are psychotic, even at the base level, out of 3 hours. Candace couldn't provide evidence for one of her claims, literally zero. Andrew instantly explained the evidence that makes it overwhelming, and Candace's rebuttal was the text seemed weird. But this is maybe where I wanted to go, which is I don't think it's good enough to even say that people are retarded. There is a psychosis going on. There is some form of psychosis, like this, you know, Nick talked about this too, this dogmatic nature of it all. And even, you know, what's crazy is like now it's becoming like from the Candace fans, which is if you disagree with Candace, like you must be a Fed, right? You must be a Fed. To disagree with Candace now, you know, it's becoming like the heuristic, which is it's forming a pretty strong coalition, you know, to me. But to say that people are dumb, I don't think is entirely descriptive of what you are seeing from people. It's like retarded and psychotic. It's like both of those together, like deranged, delusional. That probably would be a better way to really kind of describe what we're seeing with the reactions from people on the timeline. But just wanted to extend that out there because I agree with Bryson. But to move back to maybe more typical Groyper report material from what we'll cover, I think the one thing I wanted to go to is we could really go to, we kind of already covered the Trump safety thing, so I don't know if you need to play that clip, but the Ben Shapiro on PBD before this debate about another potential debate between Nick Fuentes and Ben Shapiro. And so what I liked about it was the fact that Patrick Bet-David did try to pressure Ben Shapiro into debating Nick. And for those who might not have seen it, Ben Shapiro went on Patrick Bet-David's show. It was sometime like last week actually, but it didn't air until a couple of days ago. And it was funny because he even like made mention on his other show to Groypers and Clippers, like be ready for Wednesday, like because you're gonna want to hear what Ben Shapiro says in this. I thought it was kind of funny. And the main meat of it was about the overall political system. You know, there's a bunch of different chapters in it, but the final like 15 to 20 minutes was about the Groypers in general and also Nick Fuentes. And so I think the media's piece of the interview was this clip right here. So here it is, put on screen for you guys, and then we'll react to it afterwards.
I think he's different when he's on the mic and on the screen talking, him and the camera like this, versus one-on-one.
Well, I think
very different
listen,
one-on-one.
also, obviously, his incentive structure, if we were to sit down together, would be to get the own the Shapiro moment, right, and then blow it up all over the internet. Clearly,
Would you ever have him on?
would I ever have him on? I mean, it depends. Again, if he were, I would. The answer is no, I think. But the reason I'm hesitating is because if I got the impression that he were willing to have like an actual serious sit down conversation without all of the, now I'm just going to call you a Jew for the shits and giggles of it, so that the audience goes crazy. Like I'm not interested in that.
Why
right?
not?
Why am I not interested in having on somebody who just calls me a Jew for the shits and giggles of it? Because I think
I actually don't think he'll do that.
I mean,
actually don't think he'll do that.
So I mean, listen, if you could convince me of that, then I would do it.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think he would do that.
or the
I think it would be a real good debate, and it would be a good conversation. And I think a lot of the youth would sit there and say, "Good for Ben for having him on." It would be what a lot of people would never see coming, and I think you would be more surprised on how he is one-on-one. By the way, just so you know,
I mean, again,
from the day
I'm not
he's been
saying-
on my podcast,
I'm sure he's a very nice guy in a one-on-one.
from the day he was here with me, the interview till today, him and I haven't spoken at all.
Yeah.
So it's not like
no,
it's
of course,
a
of
conversation,
course.
anything like that. I just think it would be a good conversation to have him. And, selfishly, I would also like to see you and Tucker sitting down. You on his or him on yours.
Again,
I know, and that's not
I've offered
happening.
Tucker that about 1,000 times.
I have seen that.
And I really doubt that's going to happen. Again, I think that there's a misalignment of incentives. I think that Nick, let's put it this way, Nick does not want to be pinned down on his ideological beliefs with data or with counter argument that is serious. And so his incentive structure very strongly would be to sort of do the Piers Morgan interview, right? Like if you watch Nick's interview with Piers Morgan, again, I found it amusing too, because Nick's really good at that game. But Piers is trying to pin him down on his beliefs about the Holocaust. And so what Nick does is he immediately launches into a bunch of jokes about the Holocaust. Well, again, those jokes may be transgressively funny, but that doesn't actually get to the root of the issue. Is everyone smarter for having heard that? I think actually everyone might be stupider for having heard this.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, right? A level of debate requires a level of sincere revelation of your interior beliefs and willing to defend them. If what you're going to do is run away to comedy or to humor or to insult, then that's not worthwhile. It doesn't advance the ball.
There's a difference with comedy, and there's a difference with rage baiting comments that it's going to get under your skin. I think if, like, when I was at Amphist and somebody asked me a question, why won't you sit down with Nick? I said, I'm not comfortable with him saying the N-word all the time. And I said it from stage. I'm like, I just want you to be respectful. I listened to hip hop for many years, and maybe a little bit too much when I was a kid, but I chose to change, and I went a different direction in my life. And then we had a very respectful conversation together. Crowder is funny. Crowder is one of the most talented guys. I know you guys had something that happened many years ago, but I think Crowder is super talented.
Of course.
And it's like the stuff they used to do back in the days. Like, who is this guy? You would watch him. You would say, super brilliant, but he's also able to do this. So,
again, I think it is important for me to say at this point that at no point, so what's funny is, I'm just going to make this point because you're not making it. I know that on the internet, I'm saying that anybody should take away Nick Fuentes' microphone or anyone else's microphone. Whether I choose to be on a podcast with somebody or not choose to be on a podcast that is an aspect of free speech, the same as it is whether I want to or whether I don't want to. So I think there are circumstances under which I would do something like that, but I'd have to believe certain things about how he would approach the thing in order to mean that I would think it's worthwhile. Now, other people might think it's worthwhile, right? But they're not me, so
I think it's a way to get in front of the youth that right now is not getting a platform because they're listening to him more than you. So I think sitting down with you in front of his audience, you feel your argument is more logical, his audience is going to say, you know what, he's actually got a good point. So that would be the biggest thing. That
is definitely the strongest steel-manned argument in favor.
Yeah, even if it's a 5% that's reasonable, that's willing to shift.
Right, and the strongest steel-manned argument against is that it's a setup. Right, that's the strongest steel-manned argument.
Yeah, but if it's on your territory, there's no risk. You're controlling the territory.
I don't think that's true because again, I'm honest enough to I would not slice and dice it, right? And anything that we taped, we'd put out.
Yeah. No. Listen,
So, yeah.
I mean, I came to your territory, so I've seen how you guys do things.
I mean, we're so kind with our interviews, as you know, that like we'll say that if somebody says something they feel they didn't articulate properly in the moment, we'll say like go back and articulate it better.
So, Josh, your thoughts?
So he's good, man. Benny Boy is good. And because I remember I actually watched your video where you kind of responded to this. So I don't want to go word for word, but I had, the same takeaway, which is essentially how funny is it that, he goes, well, why wouldn't you, debate Nick Fuentes? And he's like, well, Nick Fuentes, look at his Piers Morgan interview. Nick Fuentes has had how many interviews in the past year alone, let alone go to his full career? Of course, he goes to the Piers Morgan one, which is Piers Morgan, the tabloid journalist, is trying. He goes, well, Nick doesn't want to get pinned down with a reasonable critique and data. That's what Nick Fuentes wants to avoid. Yet he appeals to the most like what was Piers Morgan trying to pin Nick down on? He was trying to get him to say the exact number of people he thought died in the Holocaust.
Right.
It's an unserious. It was a totally unserious debate. It was just trying to get the boomer, the boomer idea of a clip, and Nick masterfully skirted it. And that's what you do. It's that's with humor. Look at his discussion with Tucker. Look at it with Candace, especially Candace. Nick's conversation with Candace was extremely charitable.
Yeah.
And of course, here's a hot take you've never heard before. Ben cannot and absolutely will not debate Nick Fuentes. And this is the thing. He talks about how benevolent his interview style is. Oh, when we have guests, we let them do a second take if they thought they didn't do it bad. And it's like, oh, see, the debate that I will never have, we're super charitable with it. We roll out the red carpet for the debates that will never happen.
Right.
Well, of course you can say that because they're never going to do it.
It's I think that though it shows how much Nick has influenced other people though.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm inclined to agree with you that I don't think that Ben would ever debate Nick, but he's put Ben back now in a position where, previously with where Charlie Kirk, it was like, oh, I don't debate trolls. He's written off. Done. Nothing. But because now that Nick has been on Dave Smith's podcast, he's been on PBD, he's been on Candace, he's been on Channel 5, he's been on Bradley Martin, he's been on all of them and go down the line, and we're expecting another collab to drop too. It's that, well, now everyone else has already seen those ones. You can't go, well, he's just a troll. He's not even a serious political guy, because that doesn't make any sense anymore, because people have seen him on other platforms engage. Maybe they didn't even disagree with him, but they've now seen Nick engage with political ideas in a professional and serious manner. Now, you might not agree with him, but he's clearly he's doing the bit where he's obviously having these very, serious political conversations in a way where he's clearly arguing for something that he believes in, not in a fake way, not even in a comedic way. And so it's funny to me, and I even said this in the video, that the reference he makes to why he wouldn't have Nick on a show is to Piers Morgan, which I would say is the only collab that Nick has done that you could be able to even point at and go, well, see, he just wants to say these racy things, right? But entirely omitting, much like what you had already said, that Piers Morgan was himself not trying to have a conversation with Nick. Piers Morgan was trying to get Nick to apologize. He was trying to get the moment, if you will, right? He's trying to get the clip, if you will. And I think that's also another absolutely insane and hilarious thing for Ben Shapiro to make, Mr. Leftist Tears, Mr. Own the Libs, Mr. Popularize the entirety of owning the libs, doing these debate clips, these debate styles of showing up to college campuses, debating a bunch of people, and then going, see, I own them. That's where you made your shtick, was clipping your own debates, right? And he doesn't do that nearly as much as he does now, largely because Charlie Kirk started doing it, Crowder had been doing it. But to act as Ben, why did you do all of that then? Why was it okay for you to own the libs and for you to get all those moments for when you're trying to push your political ideology, but when somebody else, and it's not to say that's the entire reason why Nick would even do it, but clearly every person who entertains a debate is wanting to get their winning moment, the winning clip. And so to act as if that's not a integral part of why there's even a mutual benefit for people to debate, the debates wouldn't even happen. Debates are happening for the majority of the reason for most people who are having them want to get the win. They want to both bolster their credibility at the same time degrading their opponents, but to get that moment, which is that will go viral. It becomes a it becomes content. It becomes a step forward for them, whether for their ideology or themselves in their career. And so to hear all of that being said the way that Shapiro entertained it, it was at least good and refreshing to hear PBD respond back every single time. Not once did he go, you know what, Ben, I think you might be right there. He goes, no. He's like, I'm telling you. He's like, you gotta talk to the guy. You got to talk to the guy. I talk to the guy. You got to talk to the guy. He's doing his PBD thing of pushing for Nick. And I think that can only be done because Nick has done what he said he would do, which is refine himself, be professional, and carry himself in a manner that is extremely disarming. That, they can't just throw, salt. They can't just throw you out the window, because when you did make your appearances, you're like, hi, I'm Nick. Hi, I'm Nick. I'm not even, I'm not trying to like make him look like he's weak or anything, but
yeah.
he's like showing up and he's like, hi, I have some things I'd like to say. And they're like, well, what's this guy got to say? And doing that and having that tactic, that strategy, has now put Ben on the heels of having to find new ways to come up with why he can't debate Nick. Because Ben, like PBD said, he's like, well, I don't think he would do that. I don't think he would do that to you. And Ben's like, okay, well, but other people are convinced of that, but not me. And it's like, I think at this point, you're the only one that's not convinced of that. And I think we all know why.
Well, and what's funny is when we were watching the clip, someone commented and said, try getting it out, Ben.
Corn pop.
Because it's like, you've got one of them boys cornered when they restate the question. It's like, well, why won't you debate Nick? And he's like, why won't I debate Nick? He's got to like legalese his way out of it now.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about this interaction specifically is obviously what's entertaining about it and what's worth talking about it is the debate with Nick and Ben. Is it going to happen? What does Ben have to say about it? Obviously, but what is really going on here, I think, is PBD is giving Ben Shapiro a chance to sort of re-legitimize himself. Because I'll be straightforward. I've talked about the boomers in my work life and at my job who are my bosses. Even they don't like Ben Shapiro. Even they are like this he's too Jewy. Like he's just not likable. But this clip, while obviously, like, to everyone watching, everyone's going to have the same takeaway, which is Ben Shapiro does not want to debate Nick Fuentes. But it gives Ben Shapiro the opportunity to introduce this, because we know it's because he's afraid. It's because he can't.
Yeah.
But it gives him the opportunity to put Nick Fuentes down and voice why he is not worth debating. Oh, it's because he's not serious. And, we're analyzing the lie, but the mere fact that he gets to go out there and put it forth is a huge advantage to him, even despite its interpretation by the people viewing it.
Yeah. I guess.
Now, is it intentional from PBD?
I do think it is. That's actually where I was going to go.
Okay.
I guess to respond to what you're saying first, I guess maybe I disagree a little bit in the fact that I think the average person sees this and they're viewing someone dodging. I think the average person's just going to view that as dodging. And although I will give credit to Ben that he at least didn't have like a crazy moment where he's like, the stuttering was basically it, right? But he did kind of like basically catch himself, and he did dance the dance a little bit. So I think when people look into this,
did it quite well.
Yeah, like when they look into this, they'll be like, okay, he's dodging it, but he danced so well enough that it wasn't like a massively viral clip. It wasn't like talked about for a week because Ben had this big, and he didn't have that, and so he kind of dodged that moment. To the intentionality of it, though, I think that, after the last debate, I think PBD wants to make some more money. I think PBD would like to moderate another major debate. You get another like massive debate going on where you're sitting in the middle of them, because I think that does what to PBD? Bolsters his credibility. If he's being selected as a moderator, and what does it help do? If your brand is that you hear from all sides, and then you've moderated 2 major debates back to back, well then, I mean, that speaks as if like he's then in of itself positioning himself strongly as like, I'm the lead centrist guy. You want to hear the centrist opinion on things? Come to PBD. I'm in the middle, and that helps his brand too. Obviously, I disagree with him. Ideologically on some things, but I think there's probably some self-enriching elements of there, some selfish, the selfish maybe reasoning driving why he was maybe so intentional about it. But to go to the substance of what Shapiro had been putting forward there, and did you watch this interview at all, and maybe its entirety or even the section of it?
No.
So they do spend a good portion, like the opening of the talk was actually about like Groypers. It was actually about Groypers and the Politico article of the Groypers who had been, begun the infiltrating, the people's, all the fears, the reactions of the Groyper problem is what they've been deeming it, right? Both first with the New York Times. Well, I would even say back first, actually way back in 2025 with Rod Dreher, which then turned into a New York Times article about 2 weeks ago. And then Politico followed it up, I think a week later with their own version of the article. And now we know that the obviously it's happening in DC. Politico, I think, covered the DC element of it. What did New York Times article cover? New York Times covered the Heritage Foundation. That's what it was. So they covered the fact that the Heritage Foundation was in the middle of a civil war. And in fact, not even that they were in the middle of a civil war, but that the civil war seemingly has been won. And the people leaving the Heritage Foundation are all the boomers, are all the old way, the vanguard. And the new people coming in, I think even highlighted one portion of the article was like a Groypette was like, yeah, you're taking it way too seriously that, yeah, women shouldn't have rights. They should be in the kitchen. And so it was like it was an old man who was like pearl clutching because a girl was arguing to him like, yeah, women need to shut the fuck up. And so you have this old guy who's like, oh, my stars, but he's being told that by a girl. It's like, that's one of the things they're honing in on. And they're also like talking about, the Tucker Carlson thing that kind of it evolved from. That's kind of where it started, where Kevin Roberts defended Tucker, although he disavowed Nick, but he defended Tucker doing it. I think we kind of had, some nuances in there too. But the point being, the Groyperism thing is what mounted the discussion about Nick.
Right.
And so even inside of that, in both before and after, one of the elements that he was saying, Ben Shapiro, he's asked directly by Patrick Bet-David, like, how much of a role do you think that Nick will play in 2028? To which he says, not much. But if you listen to the entirety of the interview, he's both making the argument that Tucker and Nick are like on the same side, and then also making the argument that JD Vance needs to distance himself from Tucker, and then all in all, with connecting all of it, arguing that Tucker is like something to be concerned about. So even inside of that, it's like, that doesn't make any sense. If Nick and Tucker are on the same side, and that's why Tucker has a hot and cold approach, is because Tucker is afraid that Nick is going to take his audience, but Nick's not playing much of a role, and you're yelling at Tucker Carlson for being close to JD Vance, or you're yelling at JD because he's close to Tucker Carlson, the other way around for me. Then clearly Nick's just as much of a force, if not more. Because if Tucker's this force that JD Vance needs to separate himself from, and like he's concerned about what Tucker Carlson's doing, and then he also makes the argument, and he says this verbatim, that Tucker fears that Nick is going to drink his milkshake, which he expands on by saying that he thinks that Tucker fears and Nick is going to take his audience. So Nick's going to take his audience, but he's less of a factor. It's like, that doesn't make any sense at all. So even inside of the broader interview, there is this dancing around how legitimate the Groyper problem is and how legitimate Nick Fuentes is in general. And so all in all, just to say, like, that whole interview was like very eloquent dancing from Ben Shapiro. Like, not even just in terms of the Nick Fuentes debate, but the entire element of the Groypers and Tucker Carlson and the whole nature to it. He did some strong kind of like maneuvering around the overall.
That and that's what I was saying when we first started talking about this clip is that Ben he's good. Because I guarantee what he's saying what he's thinking, and which we can clearly see he is concerned about Nick Fuentes, but his calculus is we have to belittle this guy. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I've heard of this kid. I had interactions with him in 2018, but he's just as small as he is then. It just so happens that he's gained an audience of I feel bad for these people. It's these disaffected young men who are attracted by a sensational young man, but we all grow up eventually. That's what he has to do, despite the fact that he is concerned. So
Right.
he's conveying to the boomer audience, don't worry, you're good.
Yeah.
While answering the question.
Yeah. And and it's funny because, well, what is he doing too, right? So think about it, right? So if Ben Shapiro is warning or basically chastising from afar JD Vance because JD Vance is too close to Tucker, well, what is he doing? It's the same thing that we've been talking about, which is the vanguard, the old guard of the right wing, is doing what? Disavowing anyone more radical than the current people in the establishment. So the old guard is always going out of their way to put the pressure down on any politician who gets too close to our quote unquote radicals. Now we may view Tucker Carlson as not a radical, but by the old guard standards, he definitely is. Especially for what he's like pushing for in terms of what his news cycle is about, which is being critical of Israel, being pro JD Vance, but also being very antagonistic towards all of the people who are in the who are currently pro Israel, the Zionists, obviously Ted Cruz and Huckabee and all of that. So they view him as a radical. And once again, Ben Shapiro is spending the majority of that podcast trying to do what he can to plead for JD Vance and others to not get close to the radicals. Don't get close to Tucker Carlson, which once again is the complete opposite dynamic of what the left wing does with theirs, where on two ends. For one, you had I think I watched clips from AOC and somebody else I can't remember now. I think it's even Bernie Sanders, who are talking about Hassan Piker, and they're like, "Yeah, dude, he says dumb things. Who cares? Whatever. We agree on all the basic economic things. I'm not going to completely scream and disavow this guy because of one dumb thing he said." And they don't care. They'll eat the criticism and then push for why they should keep supporting somebody like a Hassan Piker. But on the other side, like we saw with the Will Cain, and it's like Will Cain versus some Democrat strategist, and she's like, "No, I'm not going to disavow Hassan Piker. Like, I agree with him. I think he's got his head in the right place for many things." And then Will Cain, what's he doing the entire time? Is he's like, "Whoa," he's like, he's like, "But look how we do it." He's like, but like a Nick Fuentes. He's like, "I agree with you. Nick Fuentes is terrible, but you know what we do with Nick Fuentes? We ensure he doesn't get close to it." And the lady goes, "Yes, I agree with you. I don't like Nick Fuentes. No one should listen to him. But Hassan Piker's different. We like him, and we're gonna platform him."
Mm-hmm.
And so you have, it's all from the right wing. It's all directional against the right. From the left, it's directional against the right, and then pro left. So the only thing that ends up, the way that pressure is applied over a long period of time is, well, you end up getting a lot more prominent left wing radicals who are streamers and otherwise, because the establishment is willing to engage with them and promote them and defend them when it suits their interests. Obviously, I think there's a limit to that for how far you can go, but that's the dynamic.
I think what's going to become winning rhetoric for the right wing in 2028, or definitely by 2032, is enough. And we had already talked about this, and the old GOP's got to go away. But this is one of the things about it, is enough of this. We have to come together, everybody. We have to put these little things aside and come together. It has to be, no. It is us versus them. We are good. They are bad. We have to win, because if they win, it will be hell on earth, which is what we all believe. So why don't we just say that? And to, again, I don't mean to kind of like backtrack here, but to the Ben Shapiro and Nick and Tucker thing, this is something you had been saying, I had been saying, and Zeb has been saying since as long as I've known you guys, which is Tucker Carlson is a part of the horseshoe theory. He is going to corral. That's what he is there for. Because think about it.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson. So Ben won't debate Nick Fuentes because Nick Fuentes is not an honest debater. He jokes around when people try to pin him down on things he said. But Ben Shapiro is going to debate Tucker Carlson after his interview with Ted Cruz, where he totally like bait and switched on him.
Right.
Tucker Carlson is clearly not an honest, like person. His style is no different than Ian Carroll or Candace Owens, where it's like,
agreed.
So wait a minute, you mean this? Well, isn't that weird?
And well, what he said even in the interview is what he said is that he's reached out to Tucker thousands of times. So not only is he's willing to debate Tucker. He said on the interview like he has reached out numerous times, and like Tucker's not game for it. So you have Ben who's willing to debate Tucker. Tucker doesn't want to debate Ben, and then you have Nick who's willing to debate Ben, but Ben's not willing to debate Nick, and so you have like a stalemate where like, there's, like nothing's happening. Which I even said in the video. I think that's like we need to put pressure on Tucker. Like debate Ben then. Do it.
So I want to hear your reasoning as to why, because I was watching your video on that, and my initial thoughts, now I hadn't given it much more thought. I'm just going to say my initial thoughts were no, because I do think Tucker is there to kind of corral people. And if he wins, then he legitimizes himself, which is bad for us. And if he loses, then he delegitimizes the position, which is bad for us. So that's my initial thoughts, but I want to hear what you kind of have to say about that.
So part of my thinking came before the debate, and part of it came after the great debate that we talked about today, which is, I think, if anything is true, is that people nowadays they are so tribalized, are so deep in their camps that I don't think this will serve as much of a mind changer for anybody. What I do think it will serve, and much how like this last debate did, the one that we talked about the majority of the show, is it serves as like basically like a rallying signal. It's like a victory. It's like a victory drum being signed, which is like no one is like the Candace's crowd and her audience is like now like, oh, see, like they're energized now. Like they're like, see, we're right. We won the debate, even though we could look at it and objectively say like, I don't think anybody won the debate. I think it was terrible. But for the base, it rallied and energized. So to that effect, I think if Tucker were to take on the debate with Ben, no matter which direction it went, and I think Tucker would be good enough to get some zingers off towards Ben, is that I would think it would do is like, well, who is in Tucker's audience? Well, Tucker's audience is probably capturing all of the boomers who aren't watching Nick, who aren't listening to Nick. Tucker's audience is probably capturing a huge portion of these disaffected MAGA people who are irritated. And not that I want Tucker to be legitimized at all. I don't even think it would. But I think it would then also serve as almost like it would serve for Vance this message of look how many people do not want to hear another pro-Israel value uttered again, which may then serve for Vance to be in a position of being unable to disavow Nick and unable to be, pro-Israel, at least on the overt nature of it. Which, not that I think it serves much in the short form, but I think that may serve as a strong message for those who may be on the fence or those boomers as where they may be willing to have their votes in the future levied, and maybe just serve as like continuous pressure on the issue that is Israel. But at least that comes from a more centered, more pro-right
You don't seem to understand. Earth isn't yours to conquer.
Huge.
Nico the brown clown to lose a debate to a video Groyper sent $3 Josh looking lean.
That's funny.
Let's go, dude.
That's huge. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And I appreciate it too. But
yeah, probably from Smelly, I would imagine. That had to come from Smelly.
Probably. So here's my concern though about that, because I get where you're coming from, but realistically, I don't think that I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's the takeaway from a Tucker Ben debate, because I think like we have to ask ourselves, if Ben and Tucker debate the Israel issue, what is that going to look like? And I guarantee it's not going to be like Ted Cruz. It's not going to be where Tucker is getting one over on this guy. It is going to be Tucker coming into the debate with like, I love Israel. We're buddy. And it's going to be really cordial. There's not going to be any fights. It's going to be basically just a pleasant conversation. And Tucker and Nick have obviously split ways since their interview. It is going to be an opportunity for Tucker to legitimize criticisms of Israel in the most milquetoast versions of the argument, and then put down the real people talking. Put down Nick Fuentes, who is the actual voice of the argument. He's, and it's going to, it's kind of like how Tucker Carlson, let's take it with the liberal issue, for example. Tucker Carlson is presenting, this divide is it's a class thing. It's we got to get over it. And he's going to do the same thing with this. He's like, I have Jewish friends. I love Jews. We're buddies. It's just, I don't think, worst case is she goes, I don't think we should bomb kids. He goes, well, and then Ben will go, well, they're hostages, like, well, what are we supposed to do? And then they're going to get I think if there's a Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson debate, it's going to be super pleasant, and they're both going to be the winners.
See, I don't think it would go like that, simply because I think if that was the way it was going to go, Tucker would have already debated Ben. And I think the reason why he's not taking up the debate is because I think there's a much greater chance it delegitimizes Tucker than it does the other way around, which is that if he were to debate Ben on the issues that Ben would want to debate about, which would be all the pro-Israel issues and like the MAGA fracture, well, then Tucker's going to have to come to ball. He's going to have to come play ball, with Ben. And that's going to mean that he's going to have some pretty strong forward positions of the Israeli control, obviously with Mossad and things like that. And so I think if he were to do that, it then puts him out there with like a huge debate, which is like, well, here's what Tucker's positions are on Israel. Meaning that becomes then a reflection on J.D. Vance. And so I think that's maybe the largest reason why Tucker's not taking the debate. But I think if he does take the debate, if the pressure is upped, and then Tucker's being seen as like someone who's running from Ben, I think if anything, it provides a chance for Nick to prove and expose both what Tucker is and also shit on Ben at the same time. I think it would actually open up an opportunity for Nick to clean up, if you will. Especially if you get like a weak performance from Tucker, or if he has a strong one, then I think it forces JD Vance to then have to like be out in the public. And I think either way, whether it's at Tucker being delegitimized or Vance being delegitimized, I think either one of those open up opportunities for them to begin to have some cracks form, some reality being shined on like who they actually are, what they actually believe. And if you do get the milquetoast thing from Tucker Carlson, I mean, he was already attacked by that from people even like Steven Crowder, this 10-point plan. And so even if you do get the milquetoast version of that, you may get further being delegitimized by people like Crowder, who go and point at, how retarded and how weak that is. And like everybody, of course, thinks this, like, why do you even need this in the part of the plan? But I think it would at least serve as a stepping stone, for Nick then. But also, I can also see it going the other way where it's like Ben goes, well, I already debated Tucker and they're the same person, so why would I debate Nick?
Well, and I know we're at the 2-hour mark, but I want to say this because I think I get where you're I get where you're coming from on this, but I think we have to think of it. This is how I think of it. In the world of political commentary, at least in this regard, there's like two factions. Yep. There is the highly popular periphery, and then there is the mainstream. Ben Shapiro is mainstream. Mark Levin is mainstream. Tucker Carlson was and kind of still is mainstream.
Yeah.
Despite the fact no one listens to Mark Levin, despite the fact no one listens to Ben Shapiro, they are, well, of course, but like despite that fact, there is, and you have to admit it, there is this sort of like, I don't know if elegance is the word, but there is this, it's like these are the final bosses. You know what I mean? Like these are the mainstream accepted political commentators.
Yeah.
And so Tucker was, and I would argue still is, in that class. But he recognized that this periphery, which would be, the Joe Rogans, the all of these comedians. You got your what's that guy's name, Theo Vaughn. And then you get your Candace Owens, your Ian Carrolls, us. Obviously not to that level, but you know what I mean. Like that is the highly popular, even more popular than them, but it is still the periphery. Ben can never let Nick delve into the mainstream. He can let Tucker.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
So that's the thing, is even if Tucker, that's why I think like I don't think within the next few years, Ben will be able to penetrate into the mainstream.
Pause.
And yeah, but Nick can never penetrate Ben.
That's funny.
But you get what I'm saying. It's like, but Tucker is the acceptable candidate that could represent those views. But the problem is he's not going to, because he doesn't see it the way we do. He sees it as racism bad.
Yeah. Well, what if Candace debates Ben? And also, I would even add on there too, it's like, I don't know, I find it hard to call Candace Owens periphery when you're polling 200K, live viewers on your YouTube channel. It's like, yeah, it's not legacy media, definitely. But there does come a point where it's like, Rogan's not on ABC either. But we would still consider Rogan to be mainstream. So I think there's especially because of how YouTube kind of expanded through COVID, right? Many people kind of switched off, started going to, YouTube channels versus watching cable TV. I do think there's probably a line where I think that Candace, is definitely in the mainstream now. She's someone who is in the top 3 of who's your favorite podcaster, right?
Well,
for many people, it's probably top.
And I get what you're saying. Let me put it this way. Because as you know, Nick talked about how Daily Wire is going under, but all of a sudden they're going to get bought out. And my point is I don't mean, when I say mainstream, I don't even necessarily mean their popularity. I mean, think of Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and Barry Weiss, for example. Think of their positions as think of them like they are in the government.
Yeah.
Candace Owens isn't. Tucker Carlson kind of is. Theo Vaughn isn't. My point is Ben Shapiro can hemorrhage viewership all the live long day, but he's not going anywhere. Mark Levin ain't going anywhere because they are in that circle.
Right.
They can't so Nick, they tried to get Nick out of every circle, but he has thoroughly infiltrated the periphery. The establishment is that last line of defense.
Right.
And they can't legitimize him by doing that platform. And I think there's this mindset. It's like, okay, Nick broke containment. Okay, he broke containment, but he hasn't broke into the safe. You know what I mean?
Right.
He may have gotten out of jail, but he's not in the jewelry box.
Yeah, he's in the house, but not in the office yet. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, which I think is to be expected. They're going to continue wheeling out whatever ways they can to gatekeep him. It's just becoming harder for them because the more that he is in the periphery, he's he's able to.
Laughing at Jews. So you were laughing at Jews Rock, and I see Jews Sock.
Jews Sock, right. But no, I mean, that basically does it for us today. A lot of the reason being, Nick only live 2 days this week, and, of the 2 days, it really was just more Iran war conversations as well. And I think we're kind of all in the same place with what the Iran war is. Really only big kind of thing to think about is these reports of Trump being assassinated getting louder and louder. Trump obviously hiding in a catering station being wheeled on his flight back from Turkey. And I think that they're obviously taking it seriously. Obviously, they wouldn't have acted on it had they not thought there was some kind of credibility to the claim. Later on, we got the report, not from CENTCOM, but from another U.S. intelligence agency, that they actually had low confidence in the intelligence report. So maybe there's going to be some infighting we see between the intelligence agencies, but that's basically the entire history of America and Israel with a one sentence: intelligence agencies fighting. Beyond that, we covered the debate front to back as much as we could. Lord willing, I'm not going to have to talk about that debate ever again in my lifetime. But that'd be too good of a thing to be true, unfortunately. And I think this debate will be talked about for some time, and it would definitely be something to be talked about in the news cycle in the coming weeks, and maybe we'll even get some more drama out of it. I think there's been some ongoing drama been going on, just in the overall. And I think there's even new drama that was stirred up today that we could have talked about, but we'll save that maybe for next week or see what happens to it. But we'll tell you guys on our way out. But yeah, Thomas Massey took aim at Nick Shirley, took shots at Nick Shirley. If you haven't seen this, Thomas Massey actually, I can't remember, I'm paraphrasing, but basically said like, it would have been nice had you supported this and this and this, but here we are. And then Nick Shirley quoted Thomas Massey, ratioed him, I do believe, fired back and said, I've been doing this and this. Nick Fuentes responded to Shirley, backing up Nick Shirley and agreeing with him. And so that kind of formed a little bit of drama. Then Owen Schroyer responded, backing up Thomas Massey against Shirley and Nick. So now there's like a new form of drama, a new chapter. But I can only keep up with so much. Figured we'd cover the debate instead of covering some of that new stuff. But just to let you know on your way out that is happening. And thank you very much from Mr. Psyops. He says, I like you guys. This is my third or fourth time tuning in. You younger men to make this Gen X man proud and optimistic about our future. Well, I appreciate that. And we are doing our best, certainly, to steer things in the right direction. Just trust me. Many conversations were taking place after the debate about how blackpilling it all really feels. Maybe less so in terms of what happened in the debate, but seeing the reactions of people and how, I think Foulball said it best earlier in the chat room, which is that, if you didn't walk away from this going, what the hell was that? It's like, you kind of have the wrong opinion. It's like, that's like the only wrong opinion to have is to say somebody clearly won. I think is the only wrong opinion that you could have out of that debate. But beyond that, we should be back here next week, same time on Saturday, 8 p.m. Perhaps we'll have a guest, perhaps we won't. Either way, I'm what people are tuning in. No, I'm just kidding. We appreciate you all. And man, anything else you want to add, Josh?
No, dude, I had a great show. Happy to be back on the Groyper Report, and looking forward to seeing you guys next week.
Yes, and for those, stay tuned in, because I believe tomorrow we should have another episode for Mr. Foulball Productions, I do believe, for the Right Wing Pulse, and I'm sure we'll talk about the debate as well. Probably some other conversations over the weekend as well, too. But yeah, check out Right Wing Pulse tomorrow at 8 p.m., and we'll see you guys soon. And I'll probably be on Kick tomorrow. And besides that, Christ is King, as always. He always has been, always will be. And I think that the key thing to remain, though, is that sometimes it is darkest before the dawn, and blackpilling and giving up is hitting the I quit button. And we can't quit. We have children. We have men that are coming after us. We have to be concerned about the direction these things go. It'd be the easy thing to go, well, we'll let somebody else take care of it. But that's how you ended up with the football in your field the way it is now, is because the generations have been before you said, well, fuck it, I will let them take care of it. I can't be inconvenienced with such things. We're not here to do that. But until next time, we'll see you guys next week, and I'll see some of you tomorrow on the Kick stream. Probably be gaming a little bit with Kappa. We'll see what happens. But until then, take care. Peace out. Christ is King, as always.
Where do you stand politically? Give us your political ideology.
Okay, I can say anything I want.
Yeah, bro. Say yeah. Yeah.
Rumble. I don't know, the day-to-day stuff, I'm like, yeah, more bullshit. Another white girl got stabbed to death? Of course she did. What do you expect? For my politics, I just watch America First with Nick Fuentes.
Okay.
I consider myself a Groyper. Sometimes I just wait to hear Nick's take to make sure I have the right take before I make videos, you know? So, yeah, I just go with what Nick says. I just defer all my political opinions to Nick Fuentes at this point. I'm America First. I wish that we had white Christian men running the country. It's unbelievable to me that we have a government that has a policy other than America First. How does that make any sense? We pay taxes, use our taxes to benefit the country that we live in.